Oh, ready?
Ready.
Ready. All right. Hello, fellow weirdos, and welcome to Horror Through Her Eyes. We've got the Amateur Destroyer and the Taminator here, ready to explore the twisted world of horror, which is very twisted tonight, and prove that girls enjoy horror just as much as the guys do. Hi, Jessica.
Hi, Tammy.
I
How
am
are you?
so, I am not great. So I am just so
Oh,
happy to see your face. It makes me so happy,
same.
and it is the highlight of my week.
Oh, samesies. I wish I could give you a real hug instead of
I
this
know.
virtual hug.
I would love one, but alas.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Me too. Yeah.
Work sucks.
Work sucks. And today I was having teenager drama. You know how
Oh
that is.
no. Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
You know, bad grades kind of teenager drama. So, yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Which I handle fine, but the father of the child does not handle fine. So then it becomes a giant thing. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I
What
totally
drama?
get that.
What drama do you have? Anything?
Oh, mostly just crappy work stuff.
Yep.
Little
Oh,
little bit of family stuff and
yep. Yep. Feel
teen
you, feel
teen
you.
teenager trying to figure out what she's gonna do next with her life, that kind of thing.
So you just left the stage I'm in, and I have the stage you're in to look forward to, even though I've already done it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kids, you gotta love them.
Yay. I know. Just other people in general that aren't
Girl,
me.
right? Right?
Like, can I just focus on me?
So true. Oh,
All
well,
right. Well, let's forget about all of our troubles for about 2 hours here
that's the
and
whole
deal.
purpose of horror, right? Like to forget about this shit, right?
Exactly. Let's focus on somebody else's horror for a little bit here.
Right.
So we're not going to review right away, but we are going to be reviewing Hagazussa tonight, which is a German witch movie that was released in the U.S. in 2018, I believe. Let me see. I did note that somewhere in all of these friggin' notes. Oh, it was actually released in 2019 in the U.S. So and then I've seen conflicting reports on whether it was released in 2017 or 2018 in Germany, but over here it wasn't until 2019. And so this is one that I've been wanting to watch for a couple of years, which is why I picked it. Kind of just wanted to stay on our witch train from last week. So I was like, hey, I've never seen it. I've been wanting to. So I randomly picked it. And so we'll get more into that in a little bit here. But before we do, I'm going to jump into our haunting headlines.
All right.
And so the only haunting headline that I wrote down that I care about was that the Boulet Brothers Dracula was renewed for season 6.
Are they on
Uh,
season 6 already?
yes.
Holy
Well, right now,
cow.
like the one that's coming out currently is season 5.
Yeah.
So season 6 will be coming out in October of next year.
Well,
Um,
that's wonderful. Good for them.
yeah, isn't that wonderful?
That is wonderful.
Yay. I think they're already accepting like audition tapes and such too. So if there's any monsters out there listening, I'd love to see you on Dracula.
Yes. Yes.
That's all I've got. Do you have anything that sparked your interest that you happen to notice within the last week?
In all honesty, I've just been consumed with life this past week. I haven't even really looked into anything. So I'll take your word for that's the only thing notable to mention at the moment.
For sure. Totally get that. So that's it for haunting headlines. Nice and short and sweet.
Just like us.
That's right. Like literally though, we're
Yeah, like
short and sweet.
literally. That's
So
right.
now we'll be diving into our fright bites. So Tammy, do you want
Yeah.
to go first and let me know what you've
Sure.
seen this last week?
I literally have one horror watch. And that is I took Landon to see the new Godzilla movie on Sunday. And I Absolutely loved it. I'm glad I didn't know anything going into it. If Landon had known it was subtitled, he never would have agreed to go, even though he's a huge Godzilla fan. He says that
Really?
he says that black and white movies and captioned movies give him a headache.
Oh no.
I mean, he's a little dramatic, but I think we both got there and we're sitting there eating our taco salads that we ordered. And before we both realized, oh my gosh, it's closed caption. Like I thought maybe just the first few minutes were, I
Yeah.
literally knew nothing about it other than that what I had seen and what I had heard were both really good. So
Hmm.
I'm like, well, we're stuck now. And I was kind of looking at him and he didn't say anything. And then I could tell he was enjoying it as much as me. I think I said on our Facebook page, it reminded me of Godzilla movies and those monster kind of movies from when I was young. It's like what would be on, a dubbed version of on Saturday afternoon TV when I was growing up. It's what it reminded me of. And it just, so obviously referring to like nuclear power and
Yeah.
but it also like usually I hate love stories, but I don't know. They managed to like weave it all in there and make it work. Godzilla looked
Hmm.
amazing, but yet not too good that you didn't really, I mean, because obviously it was taking place in the 40s and he didn't look so good that it took me out of that or anything. I thought it
Yeah.
still had a really good feel of I mean, it looked like you were watching a movie from that time with just like way better effects.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I would tell anybody to go, like, even if you're not, like, wouldn't even classify yourself as a Godzilla fan, because I mean, I enjoy it, but if I really went for my son, I probably would have waited to see it on TV, and that would have been a mistake. I think this is something like if you can see this on the big screen, you really should. So, yeah,
Yeah. I'm gonna hop on because I also went and saw it. And I didn't know like leading up to it coming out that it was coming out until I started hearing everybody online say how
same,
amazing it was, that it's
same.
Japanese. And I got really excited like very quickly because I kept seeing only good reviews from people like specifically who love kaijus. So I was like, well, these are the people I trust when it
Right.
comes to this.
Yeah.
So I got really excited and I'm really glad I wasn't let down. I pretty much agree with everything you said. I just thought was so great. As far as, reading subtitles, there's not like a huge amount of dialogue. It's largely visual.
True.
So
Yes.
if that's something that bothers you, you probably don't really have to worry about it. In this instance, like even if you didn't really know what people were saying, you would just be entertained by what was going on. Although there were times when it seemed kind of slow. And I get
Yes.
that the point was really like fleshing out the characters. And ultimately, I think it worked because by the end of it, I loved all of the characters
Oh, for sure.
so
Like
much.
when you put it like, I think so many of the more recent generations are used to like the Hollywood version of Godzilla, where
Yeah.
Godzilla's in it 75-80% of the movie and it's just action, action, action. If that's what you're looking for in a Godzilla movie, this is, you need to look somewhere else because that's not what this is. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
say Godzilla up until the great scenes where he's like storming through the city at the end, he's only, I would say he's in what, maybe 25% of the movie,
Right, but when
maybe.
you do see him, you see him
Oh yeah.
fully. Like they
Yes.
don't hide anything. You see
Right.
how great he looks, and because you're not seeing him the whole time throughout the movie, they do a great job at building up tension even just through one of the characters like having dreams about his one interaction with Godzilla that happens like closer to the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And we get all these great like close-ups of Godzilla, as things are happening. And it's like effectively terrifying in those
It's
scenes with Godzilla. I'm totally on the boat with all of the Japanese people, like, oh shit, I'm about to
100%.
die.
And
Yeah.
I think they also did a really, like, we forget, like, Godzilla isn't necessarily real, but there was this war that these people were going through. And the story that you follow is of a failed kamikaze pilot who couldn't go through with it. And it just brings a very human side, I think, to the war and those
Hmm.
kind of decisions that these people had to make. And it's so easy to judge someone else, but until you've been there, and I don't think you would know how you would act or what you would do, and just
Yeah.
how he tried to redeem himself in so many ways. I don't want to give too much away, but I think he spent the rest of his life trying to redeem himself, to ultimately face that ultimate sacrifice again.
Mhm.
And I thought that, like, with me and Landon watching it, I was probably enjoying that part of the movie, and he was probably enjoying like the more Godzilla stuff. But I could tell he was engaged. Like, he like never got bored or didn't even mention to me I thought it was slow. And he would tell me if he had thought that.
Yeah.
But I just really like there was just a more like this movie allowed, I think, the Japanese point of view to be told instead of
Yeah.
it being more just like kind of a comical thing, guys in rubber suits and that like I really feel like somebody really tried to tell a good humanitarian story, and there just happened to be this
Yeah.
great monster in it also, which was
Totally.
great. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which was also caused by this, war, and
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
I thought all that messaging was like really hit me in the
Yes.
heart like a lot.
Yes.
So I
Yep.
think this movie is a great success. I think I read that it was doing really, really good in the box office. So I hope that that continues.
That has got to be 90% word of mouth, because I really knew
Yeah.
nothing about this coming up. And I mean, I'm checking for stuff all the time because I do these two podcasts, and
Hmm.
try to keep my ear to the ground. But I mean, I didn't get like this trailer before anything and I've been to the movies a lot in the last couple months, just was totally off my radar. And was so pleasantly surprised. But I mean, I went because of word of mouth, word of your mouth, So like, I hear it's doing really well too. I just have a feeling it's just people are absolutely loving it and telling other people to go.
Yeah, I don't know how someone could not love this, to be honest. It's just not one of those things that feels like, oh, you love it or you hate it. It
Right,
feels just like really
100%.
good.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's just like such a human story. And Godzilla just looks so freaking good. Although, like my husband, he went and he loved it too. And he was like, I mean, those funny little arms, like that kind of got me, that kind of took me out of it a little bit. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
know, but it was cool because that's, like classic Godzilla. So I just think it's like they did such a good job at kind of going back to the source and paying homage to Godzilla instead of just making this dumb giant action Hollywood movie, but
Yes.
still like made it look really freaking good and modernized it in the way that like they actually applied the technology that we have in the right way.
Yes.
So
Yep.
I
Totally.
loved it.
It's
Yeah. And I'll go watch those dumb King Kong and Godzilla movies too. Like those can be fun little popcorn movies, but watching something like this was like, to me, like this is what people should do when they're remaking something.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
It's
Yes.
like you see something that's great, but now it's old and outdated, right? So now you want to just kind of apply like our modern technology to it just to kind of like enhance it in that way, but not ruin all the great things about
Right,
it.
right. A movie remaking movie doesn't mean the movie needs to be remade per se. I think so many times people forget the magic of. I'm talking to you, Halloween. Forget the magic of what made a movie so great to begin with,
Yeah.
or the remake of the movie that we're doing next week, Black Christmas. It's like I think this shows that movies can be remade and not lose the magic, and that is, I think it's so rare. I'm very opposed
Hmm.
to remakes, but
Yeah.
this is a master class in how to remake. And they didn't like remake one movie per se. I think they remade an amalgamation of movies, but
Right.
they got that feeling, and I don't know how else to describe it other than if you know, you know. And it's like it was just everything what's right about today and everything that was what was right about those movies back then. I mean, that iconic scene of all the Japanese people trying to run away. I've seen
Hmm.
that so many times. Everyone has seen that. And it was just like, like it was just
Yeah.
so great to see that. And it was just done perfectly. So,
Oh my God. And there's the one scene I don't want to ruin, but a scene where somebody gets pushed into an alleyway and then just kind of like the air of what's going on around them,
Yep.
pushing, it's
Yep.
like mind-blowingly scary.
Yes. Yes.
You're like in
Yes.
their shoes and you're freaked out.
Well, one thing I will say, I think back when I think of those movies from when I was younger, you didn't actually see people getting trampled underfoot of Godzilla per se. And you do see that kind of thing here, which I think just made it all the more that, like what you said, I could feel that terror.
Yeah.
The when you're seeing these people running away, you're just getting a much more bigger picture of what like it would actually be like if Godzilla was tromping through your city.
Yeah.
I don't think they could or would show those things 50 years ago, but
True.
to do it now, just it felt right. It added to the to in the right way. And especially what it was really a metaphor for, how terrifying those bombs hitting those cities were, and things like that. It just, of course, it would be that terrible and gross and, but it just, everything about it was done right. So 10 out of 10.
So both Tammy and Amateur Destroyer recommend it. And we both are not big fans of remakes. So, and like, I don't know if you would classify this as a remake per se. Maybe you'd classify it as like an homage more, but you get it, you guys, you get it. To me, it's like a remake in a way.
Yes.
So awesome. Well, other than Godzilla, the only other things that I've been watching lately are season 4 of Creepshow on Shudder. Largely, I was kind of disappointed in the season. And I like cheesy horror. You know what I mean? Like I love campy horror, I guess is what I should say. And it wasn't like campy, it was like cheesy, like in a bad way for most of the stories.
Here again, this is what they're getting away from, what is the magic of that, what the magic of Creepshow is. And I am a fan of Creepshow, and I am not a fan of too much cheese, but it always felt like Creepshow got that balance right. And I definitely feel like they're losing it. And I mean, I feel like maybe they should end this and kind of go out on sort of on top. I noticed Greg Nicotero's name wasn't all over it like it normally is. So I'm wondering if maybe he stepped back a little bit. I think I did see his name, I think under like producer or something, but it used to be, I mean, he had pretty much taken over the show with his K&B, he was producing and doing all of the makeup and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't see his name all over it anymore. So I'm just wondering if maybe he stepped away and it's showing.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I hope he at least worked on the best episode, which was the last episode 6. It was George Romero in 3D baby teeth. And it was just like a totally adorable episode.
Loved it.
I really like the acting in it, actually, like of the main boy and the girl that he has a crush on and stuff. But I would recommend people at least watch that one episode. It's like so heartwarming if you love George Romero. He literally comes off the pages, and it's so cute and lovely.
And I want to believe that interacting with George Romero would have been just like that. Right. I don't know if it was. I don't feel like he ever did a ton of interviews, or if maybe it was just, I don't know, they're just not readily available. I have no idea. But I just like, isn't that every kid's fantasy to like get to hang out with your idol like that, And
my God. Yes. And when they were like, when the kids are nerding out over horror stuff, it's so cute. And it's set in a bookstore, and it largely deals with comic books, which just ties back into, EC Comics and Creepshow. And so that episode was really awesome. But the other episodes, there was like the guy who had writer's block that had like the hat that was controlling him. I thought that was kind of fun for parts of it, but overall the other episodes, they just didn't really, they're not terrible. They just weren't really doing anything for me, and they normally do. And then I just finished finished. I just finished.
I just finished.
Season 2 of American Horror Stories, which is the anthology series. And so I'm starting on season 3 now. And out of season 2, my favorite one was Bloody Mary, that followed a group of teenagers, and they're all people of color. And it's like a Black version of Bloody Mary. And I thought it was really cool. And they give you like a backstory to this Bloody Mary. I really liked the ending and where it went. So I would definitely recommend that episode. The other ones were like, to me as well, actually. It's not the most current season, so I don't know if it's going to get better. But yeah, I would say that episode in particular was pretty brutal. But yeah, that's all I have for Fright Bites. And you said you just have Godzilla, right?
Just Godzilla.
Okay, cool. Well, we do this every week on this podcast, so
I would say I have also have Hagazussa, but
I know.
get into that in a minute.
Yes. Well, without further ado, let us get into our horror movie review of Hagazussa. And just a reminder to everybody, our podcast is a spoiler-filled podcast. So this is your warning. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Okay. So, in the remote Austrian Alps in the 15th century, superstition reigns supreme. While plague stalks the land, paranoid peasants swap cautionary folk tales about evil spirits, pagans, Jews, and other outsiders. Viewed with suspicion by their neighbors, young Albrun, I don't know how to say that. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to say her name. Albrun? I just kept looking at it and being like, Albrun. But never actually listened to anybody saying it.
When the lady with the braid, like, it's almost like they have that, like, Albrun.
Yeah.
Okay,
Albrun. And her mother share a humble log cabin farm nestled in a snowy mountain woodland. Orphaned at a young age, Albrun is left traumatized and alone, though she still hears her mother's ghostly voice calling her in the dead of night. Jumping forward 20 years, adult Albrun, played by Alexandra Quen or Swen, I don't know, is now a single mother herself, still living on the forest farm with a newborn baby. The local priest shuns her and neighbors still routinely bully her. In the final act sees a brutalized, ostracized, possibly insane Albrun descend into a psychedelic nightmare of infernal visions and cannibalistic horrors. So that was somebody's really cool synopsis that I just saw on IMDb.
So I have to ask before we even start this, did somebody who really hates you, like hates you with all of their guts, tell you, Jessica, there's this great movie, you need to watch it, and you've just been like trying to get to it for 4 years and you just now got to it? Is that what happened?
I honestly don't know. I think I just heard a lot about it in general the year that it came out, just on being on people's top lists and stuff. So I think that's where the seed. I don't think there's like a particular person who was like, "Oh my God, this movie is for you." Although if someone did say that, I would totally get why they would think it is for me. But
so
no,
people
I think
had this on their top lists or their bottom.
I think a lot of people like this. I mean, maybe some people have it on their bottom list too, but
okay. Well, let's discuss it, shall we?
Let's. Before we get into the actual movie, just some of the background. Hagazussa is a German movie, coming in at 1 hour and 42 minutes. It was released in 2017, but released in the U.S. in 2019. Directed and written by Lucas Feigelfeld, who also wrote and directed Beton and Interferenz, which are both dramas. And I would personally classify this as a drama first and a horror second, if someone was going to ask me. This feels more like, leaning into the drama of it. Whereas something like The Witch, which isn't, it's not similar, but it is kind of similar. I would consider that like more horror. than this. You know what I mean?
I guess if
Like, that's
maybe it
also a drama
depends.
period piece, but I
Yes,
feel like the horror really ramps up. Like, Satan's literally in it. So,
true. And this, I think, I mean, I'm eager to discuss with you what I mean. Your little brief synopsis there said possibly insane, Elbrun. I guess it's horror depending on what you think is going on. Like if she really
mhm.
is communing with, because I've also seen it called folk horror. So I have a feeling
Right.
like you can't just blame this all on um, insanity. Like if you want to, and I tend to not. I think there was some real witchiness going on here.
Mhm.
I believe some of her. I mean, we'll get into it, but believe some of her visions and stuff may have been brought on by the psychedelic shrooms that she ate. But
Yeah.
I there's something going on. Like, and we can talk about like where did that baby come from, and just like I don't know. I think there was definitely something up with her mom, and they were being called witches by the people in the town. So, I mean, if they really are witches and that kind of stuff, then yeah, I think it's a horror. But if not, and she's just crazy, then it's definitely a really strange drama. So, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, you're kind of stirring up some ideas in my head. So, yeah, we'll definitely touch on those. Um, yeah, so getting back to the director and writer, he's done a few things, but not really anything of note. Most of his movies are shorter. This was kind of his first foray into like a longer form movie. Um, we have Alexandra Quinn playing Albrun. Selena Peter plays young Albrun,
She
who
was
I thought was
adorable.
really good. Yeah, the
Yes,
little
she was
girl.
the highlight of the movie by far.
Yeah, even just like the opening of the movie of just her and her mother, that would have made such like a great short movie or something, you know.
Yes, yes.
But yeah,
Maybe
I
he
thought she did a really good
should have
job.
stuck to his short format maybe and did something with that and then yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, because like thinking on it now, I feel like that part of the movie was so more like dreadful. And then when she's an adult and I'm following her along on her adult journey, I'm kind of just like,
I'm waiting
less
for the
invested.
witches, like, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh boy, we're off to a great start. Like I was, darn well, I would have Tammy would have shut this off, but because I was committed, I did finish it. But I didn't
Oh, thank
have
you.
that, like, I think I might have texted you what the fuck about 20 minutes into the movie. Like, and I'm
Oh,
like,
you
no,
were
what the
only like 20 minutes
yeah.
in. Yeah.
The child sexual abuse scene, I think, was the first time that I was like, what the fuck, And I'm not sure
Oh,
I would
yeah.
have gone past that, but what really, I mean, I did hold out hope that I was going to get some great witch movie, and I mean, we can talk about it, but not sure
Yeah.
they got that. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, we'll definitely need to talk about that because that scene was kind of dark. And I tried to rewind it and watch it. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening, actually. I thought maybe she's just like licking her fingers and wiping it on her head or something. I couldn't tell.
Her daughter's menstrual blood, yeah.
Oh, that might have just been some witchy shit. Might have not
Yeah,
been sexual.
because that's what your mom does when you. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
um, now I'm thinking about how people make art with their period blood. I don't know if
All
anyone
right,
knows that, but it's pretty cool.
if I'm going to do that,
Anyway,
I don't want my mother involved in helping me out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I can see it not be like sexual and just be like a generational woman, like ritualistic thing.
okay, I looked this up because I'm like, did I just see what I think I just saw? Did that mom just reach down, get a handful of her daughter's menstrual blood, and put it in her own mouth? And I saw that other people said yes. So that's at the point. I'm like, witch or no witch, I did not need to see that. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll just say just one last thing about that is just that some of the scenes they do some like show you some crazy stuff that I feel like a lot of people would shy away from. And so for that, I kind of credit the film because it could have been like even more boring than it is. If it weren't for those like few scenes, you know what I mean?
I think the movie, I know we're going to get to In Fabric eventually, but I think there was some kind of comparable scenes in that movie that did not rub me the wrong way like it did with this one, and I'm not sure why. And I even, I even put in my text to you, I am not a prude, but, like, I promise I'm not, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I totally missed that was even what was going on. But you're right, because they showed earlier in the day that she had spotted hit her blanket. So,
the
okay.
mother was like smelling her, and I think she realized she smelled different. So then she reached down there to check stuff out, and okay.
Yeah. Also, I think that at that point the mom was so sick that she was probably like delirious with fever or something.
I hope so.
Yeah, because just based on what we had seen of their relationship before she got sick, I think that she was just kind of like losing it.
Well, and the fact that she shortly ran out naked into the freezing winter, and I mean, she probably was out of her mind. But yeah. Okay. Sorry to keep interrupting. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. All right. And then we also have Claudia Martini plays her mother, Martha. Tanya Petrovsky plays Swinda. Gertie Marlin Simone was baby Martha. It's such a cute little baby. And Heyman Maria Buttinger played the priest. And he's also played a couple of small parts in Before Sunrise and Schindler's List. And everyone else, I didn't recognize any of their films, of course, because I'm a dumb American person. But I did notice, obviously, Before Sunrise and Schindler's List, so I figured I'd bring it up. Mariel Beccaro was the cinematographer. I wanted to shout them out because
it was beautiful. It was
the
definitely
cinematography
beautiful.
Was really good.
Yes.
The costume designer was Katrine Wolferman. The editor was Jorg Volkmer, and the music was done by composer Md. It's 3 M's and a D.
Okay.
And Hagazussa is an Old High German word for witch, in case anyone was wondering.
I wonder if that's where hag comes from.
It is. Yeah. So that's fun. I love hags. What a great
I am
term.
a hag. So.
Yeah. I'm a type of hag.
Oh, there's different types.
Yeah, it's I would say an outdated term that I don't want to say out loud on the podcast, but basically I love my gays. So I'm that kind of a hag.
We just said a mom ate the menstrual blood. You can say that, I think, and people know you mean it with love. But okay, I know what you mean, and so does everyone else probably.
Rhymes with hag.
Yeah.
No longer acceptable.
Bag.
Yes, I'm a bag hag. You know, it's funny. I'm kind of a bag hag. I have way too many bags. I love bags. I have like all these big old hippie bags that I carry everywhere. But not the term I was referring to.
I have a vintage JLo purse. What do you have?
A vintage JLo purse.
Yeah, Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, oh no, mine are like hippie bags. Like I have like a Hare Krishna bag I got from Hare Krishnas.
Oh, well, I'm not that cool.
At their temple that has like Hindu writing on it, and I don't know. I have all these purses that are like quilted purses and stuff like that. I don't have like designer purses or something. Sorry.
Mine's not designer, it's vintage. There's a difference.
Oh, vintage. JLo's still alive. Can it be vintage if she's alive?
I think it has to be 20 years old. So
that's the only requirement?
I think so. I didn't make that rule. I think that's on Etsy that it has to be 20 or 25 years old, and that's why I don't care. I wanted a vintage JLo purse, so I got one.
That's fine with me. I bet it's real cute. I have no idea what JLo style looks like, but I bet it's super cute.
It's like a big purple, like boho, pouchy, big, hide your candy when you go in the movies kind of purse.
Okay. That's like what all my bags are too. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have anything like prissy or designer. That's gross.
Yeah, gross. We're judging all of our listeners that have designer bags.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Oh,
to
this
get
movie.
back
Go ahead. Sorry.
get back to this movie.
You know the listeners want to know more about us. Especially all of our men listeners are dying to know what kind of purses we have. Come on.
I bet.
Don't deny it.
So, as I had mentioned a little earlier, this was the director's first longer form movie, and he had a micro budget, which was just some funding from the Film Academy. They ended up having to do some crowdfunding because they knew that they were going to run out of funds, and everybody worked for free. So, this kind of like knowing that improves my opinion of the movie.
Agreed.
Yeah, because for a micro budget movie, it's pretty damn good. Like if this was on a regular budget, I'd be like, this isn't enough. But on a micro budget, I'm like, okay, actually, they did really good for what they had.
I have to disagree with you there, but I will say it does look like
Yeah.
there's $1 million behind it. I'll say that much.
Yeah, it looks real good.
Mhm.
He grew up in the city, but the city that he grew up in was surrounded by nature and mountains, and he always felt drawn to the darkness of the woods at night. He grew up with folk tales about entities that lived in the forest, and he was particularly into witches. And he always preferred women entities in horror whose strength came through in their powers rather than their physical strength. So I was like, all right.
Yeah,
we picked a good movie for our podcast. See, it's good. And he's always personally found that a lot more terrifying, you know, when somebody dies just because an old woman looks at them or something like that. And he wanted to create a real image of what a real life witch might look like during this time. So
I would say he did a good job there. I'll give him that much for sure.
Yeah.
I thought everybody was very well cast for sure.
Totally. Yeah. I personally would like a little more witchiness for me, you know, especially because since this time, well, and even before this time with the witch, it's like you just got to add a little more witchiness. You know what I mean? To really make it kind of like a horror movie. But
well, too, like when I saw that she was going to be a goat farmer, I'm like, yes, this is going somewhere. Oh, I can't wait. And then,
yeah.
It just seems like some missed opportunities to really, if you're going to call this Hagazussa, literally witch, you need to give me some witches.
Yeah.
And I cannot say 100% for sure we ever got one. Honestly.
That's true. We don't know 100, but I guess that also makes it a little more realistic, you know? Like he's not throwing in floating women talking to Satan as a goat or anything.
Well, no, but what kind of bothers me is the subtitle of this movie is The Heathen's Curse, right? And a heathen is somebody that doesn't uphold God's way of life, which she gets accused of straight out. So that kind of made me mad. Like, is this just a persecution? Is she just simply being persecuted, brought before the priest and all that? Really nothing to do with witches? Because, we hear Jews called out. And who else? I don't remember. But it seemed like why even put that subtitle with the movie? Like this is more maybe a movie about her, like had a religious spin on it, which which did not get shoved down my throat or anything, but there was some pre-scenes which we can get into where she's chastised for being a heathen, and with it, the heathen being the subtitle of the movie. And I think he was kind of implying like, that terrible thing that happened to your mother. I was brought here to make sure everyone follows God's way and you need to get with the program. And so I was like, oh no, we're not going down this road, are we? So,
well, I think that they were pagan, right? And then all of a sudden religion is coming to where they live and like infiltrating the mountainside. Because at the beginning, there's that old man who's warning the mom, Martha, about Perchta. And I can I'll just bring this up now since we happen to be talking about it. But, you know, he tells her like, oh, be careful because Perchta might be out. And this was a goddess in Alpine paganism in Upper German and also Austrian and Slovenian regions in the Alps. And she was the guardian of the beasts and appeared during the 12 days of Christmas. And you remember he said, too, it's the 12th night already.
Right.
And initially, Perchta was the upholder of cultural taboos, such as the prohibition against spinning on holidays, like spinning like textiles.
Yes.
So that was like something that she oversaw. And
Well,
in the fourth,
go
ahead.
I was just going to say, I had to look because I wasn't sure when this might be taking place. And it's supposed to be 15th century Austria. So pre-Germany, right? And so if it's 15th century, it's actually the 1400s. This could looks like, I mean, it is the most idyllic looking at, like, it to me it like calls up that book Heidi we all read when we were young, at least I did. Just that Sound of Music, you know, running through the Alps kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, we need Vin for this conversation. I am not smart about history and the history of religion and all that. So I don't know that we're ever really told. Does he say he's not like Catholic or anything? I'm not sure if he ever declares, the priest, what kind of religion he is or whatever. And we're never really told. She's just kind of called a heathen and not a follower of God's ways. So why? Because it's a woman. She was raised by just a woman probably. And she went on to be a woman living without a man and having a baby. And I'm sure that was like the biggest taboo in the whole, because like we see right away that she's totally shunned by the town for like no good reason. It doesn't seem to be like those boys that were picking on her didn't even call her a witch. I don't think they just said, you stink and we don't want your milk, you know? So like, I just like, I wasn't sure it was just like a whole religious thing, you know? Cause I know it's called Hagazussa, but we never really hear the word witch again, except the conversation, that little interaction that her mom had with that man in the woods. And I think he was like-minded to her. Obviously you could tell they had a camaraderie. But then the men that she then, you know, that come to her house and throw stones at the house and call her a witch, obviously that's a different kind of, you know, thing. But we never, like, I don't know. I'm not sure what we're supposed to believe is going on here. We're just not really ever told. So I don't know.
Yeah, we're not told. But seeing how Perchta is literally like from paganism, and that was brought up by the other old dude, you know, who probably grew up with the old ways.
Yeah.
I think it's probably safe to assume that they're probably pagan, and like the kind of reverence that Albrun has for nature, and whenever she just like stops doing whatever she's doing to just like listen to the wind and feel the goat and, you know, whatever she's doing to appreciate nature, that's all paganism.
Masturbating while she's appreciating nature and the goat.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it.
That is definitely one way to show reverence for nature.
Absolutely.
I mean, I want her to be pagan. Hell yes. Like, yes. I want them to be and what's so weird is that the skull that she gets later seems so pagan, yet it's the priest that gives it to her. But it's also what tips Swinda off to her being not godly. So I know I'm getting ahead of us, but I don't know. It's just kind of some blurred lines there. I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering or trying to remember, when he hands her the skull, did it already have the painting on it?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's something that like someone did for her because she was pagan after she passed away or something, and he just has all the skulls in his little catacomb or whatever.
I wrote down what the place is called. It starts with an ossuary. And so it seems like what they used to do is just instead of like having a cemetery or whatever, everybody's bones just went to this room. Like the walls were lined with skulls, right? But I didn't notice that they were all painted or anything, yet he knew exactly which one was her mother's and gave it to her all painted. But then also at the same time, I mean, I thought like maybe that was an act of kindness on his part, but he seemed more to be scolding her at the same time, and
Yeah.
implying that like she needs to live in God's light, that kind of thing. And that's why he
Right.
came to the town to convert the people that weren't living godly lives. So I don't know. I mean, I thought it was like a nice thing till I saw later it's what tips Swinda off to the fair. Unless I'm not sure too. Did Swinda always plan? Was Swinda like manipulating her from the beginning? I was like, yay, she's gonna have a friend. This is so nice.
Yeah.
But then what ends up happening? It's like, man, was that always their intention? But it seems like she actually really liked her until she saw that skull in the mother's skull, kind of all done up with flowers and painting, and almost like a little shrine with the candle and all
Yeah.
that. And then that was like, she totally
Yeah.
she left right away.
I feel like she always had that intention. Maybe not specifically what ends up happening, but I think she always had like ill intent towards her and was just trying to kind of lure her into a
Women,
sense,
man, I
yeah,
freaking
false
hate.
sense of security.
I hate women, and this is why. But yeah,
You can't hate women. This is a woman podcast. Take it back.
Yes, I do. You women, I love women that lift other women up.
There
Swinda
you
is
go.
not one of those women.
Swinda sucks.
And I hate Swindas, okay? And I
Yeah.
have a Swinda in my life right now.
Yeah.
I have gotten away from so many Swindas in my lifetime. And
Oh.
you just get, if
I
all
hate Swinda so much. We're gonna call it
yes,
Swinda.
yes, but like she's like, if you women that are listening, I know you know exactly what I'm saying, so don't even. But yeah, I was well at first I thought maybe Swinda kind of liked her.
Me
You know what
too.
I mean?
That
And
was my first. I was like, oh,
yes.
and turn into like a hot witch
Yeah.
lesbian thing.
Like,
Kind of
yes.
sad it did not.
I know, I was totally bummed out, especially because it's like, all right, this movie's not afraid to go there. Yes. And because she was totally looking at her like, hey,
Yeah.
So
I guess that was just her like welcoming gaze and not her lesbian gaze, unfortunately. That wouldn't be very godly.
My gaydar must have been off, or it was on. And I don't know, but that wouldn't have been very godly of Swinda, who obviously liked to think of herself as a very godly woman, even though she did the devil's work. So anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, it is. I thought it's interesting that you brought up why did the priest give Albrun her mother's skull? Because I only have 2 questions, and that's one of them.
Oh,
Like, why did he give her the skull?
can't
I don't
answer that one.
understand.
I don't understand that either, because
yeah, I followed the same train of thought as you, as like, oh, he's doing something kind of nice and try. Maybe it was like his kind of way of being like, I don't agree with your ways, but I'm trying to make you feel safe here because I want you to convert. And
that's
this is like my
ultimately
offering.
yeah, that's what ultimately where I settled in my mind with it. That must have been because he did call her up there to chastise her, but he also sent Swinda to go get her. So he now suppose he must have already thought of her as a heathen, but I'm not so sure Swinda did yet. Maybe the priest turned Swinda onto the fact like you can't be friends with her because she's not godly or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, my God, she didn't even like Swinda takes her up there. She then comes over for coffee like later or like the next day. Didn't even give her time to convert, and she's already like judging her. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Swinda's just bad news, man.
Yeah, she is not good. So let me see here. What was that?
That was that my payment for my phone just went through. Let me put this on do not disturb. 1 second. Okay, there we go.
Okay, great. So let me see here. The director's influences were Tarkovsky, who is one of the most famous Soviet filmmakers, who died in 1986. other Eastern European films, as well as Czech and Hungarian fairy tales and films, doom metal, and old paintings. So,
You know what? I am not a expert in any of those things, but I think all of those words together describe the look or mood or feel of this film for
yeah, like the
sure.
atmosphere. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, so whether we like this movie or not, I think that he achieved like what he was trying to achieve, it sounds like. So that's cool for him. Good job, Lucas.
What he got right, he got very right. I will give him that much.
Yeah. I'll just say, like, as an overall feeling, I think it's kind of what you said. There was just like a lot of good opportunity for them to do something like really great. And I think it's because they didn't take all of those opportunities that it feels like maybe a worse movie than it actually is, you know? Because like the opening sequence was like pretty exciting.
Yes. Yes. Yes, it was.
And there's some good stuff going on. And I think it's because in the end, it kind of feels like, oh, a little like half-hearted or blasé or something. I think that that's why it comes off as a not very strong film. Whereas like if it was just shit all the way through, it'd be like less disheartening.
And I have to say, like, we were supposed to record on Tuesday, but then I had a really, really bad day. And Jessica had something she had to do yesterday. So here we are. And I finished it Tuesday morning because I couldn't sleep because I had shit going on. And I think if we had recorded Tuesday night, even apart from the day that I had, this movie had made me so mad. Like I had like a physical reaction to it. I think I would be being much harsher than now having slept on it 2 nights, and
Yeah.
like kind of like did my outline and kind of thought some more about it. I'm settling more on. I'm not so mad that I finished it, and it's just I'm disappointed that it and it's one of those two where this could just be me, like I'm disappointed that it didn't deliver what I wanted it to deliver, but maybe I'm wrong in what I think was going on. Maybe it never was supposed to, so take what I say with a grain of salt, everyone. But I
Right.
mean,
Not all movies are made specifically for us, unfortunately.
sometimes sometimes I forget that apparently.
Yeah,
So
but I feel like it is harder when you start to watch a movie and you're like, "Oh, this is made for me." And then it veers off into not for you. And then you're like, "Oh, bummer.
yes.
I thought
And you
this
know what?
was going to be like."
I was actually thinking to myself because I knew I watched it before you do. I was feeling disappointment for you. I had no idea whether you were going to like it or not, but I was like, man, I think this isn't going to be the witch movie that Jessica was thinking it was going to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that is true. Conceptually, I like it, but like literally, I like it less.
However, I would say just get a new script. Like, don't change the people, don't change the setting, don't change the music, don't change a lot of things. Just write a different script, I think, or something. I don't know. Like, he had so many things working that were in place, and it just could have been really, really good. Although, you know what? Maybe I'm not Eastern. I'm not Eastern European. I mean, I am in heritage, but not currently. I'm Eastern Wisconsin, but which there's a lot of those people around here. But I mean, I just yeah, it's just a sensibility, and I always admitted freely I am not a great understander of all the folk horror and all those legends and beliefs, all that. I'm interested. I was so happy, in the last couple of years when that really seemed to be a new genre of horror that's coming along. I think it's very, very interesting. You had said yourself that you think that there's movies that did this better, and I think I just agree. And that's too bad because he had so many things in place.
Yeah.
So
Totally. I'm trying to think of the main movie this was kind of making me think of. Where did I write it down? Um, it was that one movie, You Won't Be Alone. That movie that came out like last year.
did I see that?
I'm not sure if you did. I know Vin did. It was like really high for me and Vin, but this made me like I couldn't help but compare the two. And that movie is so good and made me feel so much that like in comparison, this one felt very like I'm not that invested for some reason. Like I'm not really connecting with it for some reason. And this other movie that's very similar,
What
like
happened in You Won't Be Alone? Just give me the two-second version. What was it about?
it's another like explorative young witch movie, but the witchiness is definitely like
Yeah,
ramped up more.
I
And
didn't see it, I don't think then.
it was really, really good. And I mean, it's also a period piece. It's also slow burn, but it's like you just feel so enthralled
Yeah.
by like this woman experiencing things and like she's kind of been sheltered her whole like childhood, and then she comes out as an adult and kind of gets into her witchiness, and she's just like experiencing life for the first time, and you can just tell like how deeply she's feeling everything, and it's
Oh,
like really, really
sounds
connected with
good.
me. It's
That sounds
so
real good.
good. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
really good to everybody, but I loved it. I don't remember where it was on my list, but I think it was like in my top 5.
Well, I mean, I trust your opinion, and we both love witch movies. I'm always here for more witch movies, so I will have to seek that out.
Yeah.
So,
So, sorry, Hagazussa. I don't mean to compare you to others, but it was really hard for me not to because they just have a lot of things in common. So to get into the actual
yeah.
movie,
Let's
we,
go.
what's funny is I seriously thought we weren't going to have that much to talk about with this because this is also one where it's like there's not a ton going on. It's a lot of like visuals of just a
There's
girl in the woods and stuff,
there
but
is so little dialogue and stuff. Like this is
yeah.
you have to figure this movie out for yourself. So what you and I are going to have is a great discussion of what we think happened in this movie because
Yeah,
I don't know exactly what you think happened. So, and I don't know what actually happened. So,
exactly.
let's get to
So,
it.
yes, the movie opens with an older woman who we later find out is named Martha, and a young girl who's her daughter, and that's Albrun. And how old do you think Albrun is at this point? Because she gets her period shortly after, so she's probably
11,
like
12.
preteen. Yeah, that's what I
I
was
think
thinking,
I
like
think I
11,
was
12.
like I think I was 12. I think my daughter was 12. So I'm going to go 12. She's not really starting to develop yet, but she's not a little girl
Yeah.
either. So,
Yeah, and they're in the snow on a mountain, like hella snow. So much snow. Looks so cold.
I I had to take a hard look at myself because if I had to pull Landon up a 5-foot hill on in that sled in that cold and
Well,
you
it's like
know that
actually snowing. Yes.
I that's what literally came to my mind is like, man, I am a wussy. I could not have lived in the 1400s and
You could have. You could have. You
I
would
guess
have, and you
get
would have
used to
just become Martha. You know what I mean?
well, first of all, do I have my inhaler? Because like
No, there are no inhalers yet.
my lungs my asthma hates the snow and it hates exercise. So like I I like could like I'm watching the mom pulling the daughter and I'm like can't do it.
Realize you're breathing out
Yeah.
loud, like, oh, excuse me.
Wait,
That's so funny.
and then like now I'm like now I need my inhaler. It's like not even me pulling.
Psychos, yeah. Now you're like Eddie and It. You
Yeah,
need your what do they call it? Your gazebo.
yeah, placebo. Mine's real. Thank you. Well, at least I think it is. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Uh,
um, and then this also we open up with the word shadows in white font on a black screen. And Martha is pulling the young girl on a sled as night approaches. And this is when they pass an old man whose name is Sep, and he's warning them about Perchta, who is this pagan goddess, this alpine pagan goddess. So cool. I know I talked a little bit about her, but I did want to mention some of what she did. Let's see. Perchta was said to roam the countryside at midwinter and to enter homes during the 12 days between Christmas and Epiphany, especially on the 12th night. She would know whether the children and young servants of the household had behaved well and worked hard all year. She's like
So
Santa.
Santa.
Yeah, but like a cooler girl version of Santa. And if they had,
I want to look up a picture of her now. Like,
oh yeah, I didn't look up any visuals.
I'm like picturing like sexy Santa. Like,
I don't think that's what you're gonna get.
7-foot goddess with long black hair.
Oh my God.
No, it's never. Okay, go ahead.
Now, if they had behaved, they might find a small silver coin the next day in a shoe or a pail. If they had not behaved, she would slit their bellies open, remove their stomach and guts, and stuff the hole with straw and pebbles.
Well, so she's got a cleaver in her belt.
You go. She was particularly concerned to see that girls had spun the whole of their allotted portion of flax or wool during the year. She would also slit people's bellies open and stuff them with straw if they ate something on the night of her feast day other than the traditional meal of fish and gruel.
Maybe she's not all that cool. I mean,
I think she sounds awesome. So anyways, that's only mention of her, but I think that this kind of gives us a little bit of context that there are still some people of the old ways living on this mountainside. But it's, it's starting to be converted. So as darkness falls, all of a sudden the old woman, Martha, stops and stares forward while her daughter Albrun tugs on her clothes, and she slowly turns around to look at the girl and smiles. And this is like Blackcoat's daughter, where there's just these little visual things happening. And like you said, not a lot of dialogue.
What do you think? Do you think she heard something, or do you think she had a pain?
I think that, yeah, I thought that she was listening out for something. And then especially after Sepp had mentioned Perchta, I was like, oh, we're worried about Perchta. This is where this movie's going. Yes. You know what I mean? I was like, cool, we're going to run into some crazy witch named Perchta. That's not where it goes. But her listening for things, I don't know if she's listening because of Perchta or if she's listening because people are, starting to like bully them for the way that they believe.
Yeah, probably that. I mean, she's pretty vulnerable out there with just her daughter and all that snow.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't like see her house yet. So they're not like, I mean, they obviously must have a ways to go. And it seems like when they do get home, it's pitch black. Yet when she runs into him, it was like maybe dusk. So I think she still had a little bit to go. But yeah, I mean, obviously she knew that these men were out there in the forest that had it out for them too. So, because she didn't seem all that surprised when they showed up, so right. I have a feeling she might have been listening for something like that, but then like trying to reassure her daughter by smiling at her. So.
Right. Yeah, probably. I just realized we didn't have the screen side by side. So just so you know, YouTube is going to be a big Tammy for like the first half, which I'm totally cool with.
Mine is us side by side. So hopefully, well, no, you're the one recording. Well, who doesn't love a big Tammy for an hour? Come on.
Yes. Way more beautiful. So.
No, but anyway, go ahead.
So they make it back to their little cottage, and that's where Martha starts preparing a stew, I assume, of some sort, or gruel. Maybe
fish and gruel, right?
Yeah. Now that I know who Perchta is. And they have a cute little kitty, I noted. And all of a sudden, Martha starts looking nervous and kind of walks around the cottage and looking out the windows. And she steps outside briefly, and there are 3 people with torches. And they're all bundled up in furs, and we hear a bunch of noises like banging. And did you say this is where people are like throwing stones at her house? Is that what's happening?
I thought that I mean, this scene though, it was a pretty like it was kind of a disturbing scene because she goes outside and it's these three, I'm assuming men, large figures, completely covered in furs, and they're just standing there, like off in the distance, still,
Yeah.
really still, and not moving, just staring at her. And she doesn't act like super panicked or anything, but she definitely goes back in and starts closing up the place. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I said, like, she didn't freak out. It's like, I don't think this is probably the first time this has happened to them, you know? So,
So
I
my
mean,
impression was that they were standing guard because of Perchta. And, they have like animal skulls and furs and stuff, which is pretty pagan. So I figured that that was just kind of like they were pagan and looking out for Perchta, but I don't know. But that was when she looked out and didn't look nervous about it. I was like, oh, they must be on guard or something.
oh, that never crossed my mind because I guess I just assumed it was them that was saying to you witches need to die or burn or whatever those people were saying when they were like banging on the house and stuff. So,
Why aren't I remembering that? Is that happening during this scene or a different scene?
no, this scene. She sees the guys out there, the people in the fur out there. She starts closing up the cabin, and then it sounds like you see the light, like they had like fire, sticks with fire at the end.
Yeah.
And so you like
Oh,
see
you're
the light
right.
going by the windows, and it sounds like people are like, I thought, oh my God, they're going to set the place on fire. They didn't, but they were like either throwing rocks at because I mean, it's just like a little log cabiny kind of place, So
Right.
obviously built by hand and all. I'm like, well, they're going to set it on fire. This is going to suck. But they were either hitting their sticks on or hitting it with something or throwing something in, just like saying die witches or burn witches or something like that. So.
You're right. Yeah, I did actually make a note of that. I'm sorry. So that probably is the same guys. So I don't know why she didn't look nervous.
Maybe because this is what they do. I don't know. I mean, she probably was scared, but she probably tried to not show it too much for Albrun.
Maybe. Yeah.
And like I said, I just got the feeling like this is something that happens, to them,
Yeah.
and they're getting persecuted, and yeah. So,
You're probably right. They're not guardians at all. They're just
well,
bundled up because it's cold.
if they were good people, they would be guardians to help out this poor woman and her daughter who are all alone in the frozen tundra. But
Yeah.
men, not all men. I'm talking Swinda men, okay?
Swindon
That
men.
that have to come and persecute the witches.
They're
So
called
yeah,
swinders.
Swindas and Swinders. That's our name going forward.
Ah. Yes, and then it's this next morning when Albrun first finds the blood in her bed. Or I mean, we assume it's the next morning. Maybe it's I don't know, a week later or something, but she finds a little bit of blood in her bed and she hides her blanket away in a chest. And then she's walking through the snow carrying a bundle of sticks. And she walks up to Martha, who's also carrying a bundle of sticks. And this is when we get confirmation that they're mother and daughter. And she hears Martha whispering to herself when she slowly turns around to face Albrun. And she has a strange look on her face. And she says to Albrun, Albrun, and then she faints in the snow. And in the next scene, we see that Albrun is giving her mother some tea, or something to that effect while she lays in bed under the covers. And then soon her mother starts vomiting over the side of the bed, and Albrun, of course, looks worried. I don't know how the heck she got her mom back into the log cabin in that snow with all their bundles of sticks.
Not
I
got her in, and people, this snow looks like it's at least like knee deep, like, I
Yeah.
mean, it's serious snow. Was able to drag her mom all the way back in there, undress her, and put her in the bed. So, but I imagine being her age and your mother's like the only person you have, and obviously she is not doing well. How terrifying that must be.
Yeah,
Felt so bad for her.
totally. I know it sucks. And you could tell that she's just like trying to be strong and stuff through this next sequence of scenes. But after she gets her tucked into bed. The next morning, she's outside fetching water in a pail when she's approached by a few people on like a sleigh that's being drawn by this beautiful black horse. And she gently pets the horse.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first time we see her just like taking a moment to appreciate like a natural being. And the people that were on the sleigh go into the cottage. I keep referring to it as a cottage. I guess that might be too, that might give this idea that it's like this big, beautiful cottage or something. It's like a little tiny log cabin. But they go inside and check on Albert's mother. And I think one of them is a doctor or
Yeah, one's
doctor
the
adjacent.
doctor. Yeah, or what would ever been whatever would have been a doctor in the 1400s, and then like a nun is like his nurse that comes with them.
Yes. And so they disrobe her and they're looking at all of these. I think I saw them referred to as tumors. When I was making my notes, I put abscesses like in her armpits and they're like all over her back and stuff. But they're like these big, bubbly, blackish.
So that I figured in my medical knowledge, it's one of two things she has. Those are either buboes from the bubonic plague. That's how that presented. And I don't know what years were this is how knowledgeable. I just know what it is. I don't know when it happened. Or the fact that it was in her armpit like that, it looked like breast cancer that had metastasized, because that's exactly where it would. Most people, when you think of breast cancer, you think of like this huge lump in your breast, but most times it usually like presents itself by actually like a lump in your armpit. And that's why it's such like a silent, that's why women have to check themselves, very regularly. It's a pretty silent killer, and it doesn't always like present itself in the way that you think it would, but the way where her bumps were like kind of were in the same distribution like you would see with like metastasizing breast cancer, which obviously I think either one would make sense, but it seemed like that was pretty advanced in the fact that she couldn't eat it had probably spread into her stomach, and it was pretty much spread throughout her entire body. And she may have known, I mean, I'm even sure they didn't even call it breast cancer back then, but she may have known something was terribly wrong with her. But you figure back then there's no such thing as cures or medicine, or I mean, she just probably tried to hide it from her daughter and tried to be as stoic as she could for as long as she could. But I mean, the doctor takes one look at her, looks at his nurse, and they both shake their head. So I mean, she's just, it's probably the end. Whatever she has, the fact that she can no longer eat is probably like the last stages of, whatever's going on with her. So
so it's not looking good just based on the doctor's face. Plus,
I think she smelled really bad, because did you notice that the nurse kind of like did one of those? So
I'm sure it doesn't smell pleasant. So they pretty much just lay her back down and cover her back up. And then we see Albrun sitting next to her in bed and feeding her. And she's trying to beg her mom to eat more. And her mom's coughing and wheezing now. She starts getting this like pretty bad wheeze that we kind of hear throughout the rest of the movie, even after Martha passes away, just in the imagination of Albrun.
It made me think of the witch from last week from Suspiria.
I know,
the head lady. Right?
It was hard not to. After we just watched it.
I know, it's exactly. They sounded exactly. I'm like, oh, the directress is what her old job used to be. But just I wanted to add the scene right before this where the doctor and the nurse look at each other and just leave. They literally walk past this little girl who they don't even acknowledge and just leave her there with her dying mother. I mean, I get it's a totally different time. There's no social work and government help and all that. Right. Stuff that we'd have nowadays. But I mean, it was just pretty. I think back then, like your whole goal in life just had to be survival. You know what I mean? Like it is so cutthroat. There's just I don't know. I don't think people had quite the empathy and stuff that we do. I mean, it's like, you're dying. So sorry.
Yeah. I'm
Sucks.
next week.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I totally felt for Albrun right then, because I mean, they didn't even like, let's send one of, a lot of times you see like, oh, there's an old lady in the village who comes and helps with these kinds of things, or, something, and just left her there. And yeah. So.
Right. Yeah, and I wonder if that was because of like their station in life, or if that was just
Wondering,
how it was in general.
I was wondering that too, because but they did come. So I
Yeah.
thought that was good. Which you don't see it, but did. And obviously they had some interaction with their neighbors, because she knew that guy that the mom did at the beginning. So I mean, Alburn must have gone to somebody to have the doctor come. So, or somebody in town, maybe, I don't know. Somehow the doctor got sent there, but
Oh, yeah, that's true.
it just very hopeless and sad situation. So,
Yeah. And so, basically, we're just watching her mother's health decline in the next few scenes. And we see them laying together in bed. And then this is when the scene happens that Tammy was referring to earlier, where apparently her mom's scooping out some period blood and licking it and wiping it on her face. And of course, Albrun like falls out of bed, like totally shocked and terrified, and she just kind of tries to hide next to the bed and cover her ears. When all of a sudden her mother gets up and just leaves the log cabin, and so the door is gently blowing in the wind, and Albrun goes out to follow her trail in the snow and try to find her. And unfortunately, when she does finally find her, it's in a marsh that's in their woods, and her mother is dead, and there's snakes slithering across her. She's like kind of on the shore of this marsh, where she's kind of like half in, half out of the water, and it's really
yeah,
disturbing.
it's very disturbing. Her head is out and her body is in, I would say, pretty much. So,
Yeah. And so this is why I was saying earlier that I'm guessing she was like losing it. Because she's doing that weird period blood stuff, and then just like basically killed herself.
but I'm just going to throw this out here, and you can tell me when we get to it later. But I wondered if there was something about that marsh, and if that's the same marsh. Like, did she go there on purpose and get in that water? Because we see Albrun later go to a marsh and get in the water to do something. So I wondered if it's
If the marsh itself has any kind of significance.
right, because if she wasn't hallucinating, she later sees her mom alive and looking fine in that same marsh. So I just wondered if there was, if they're witches, was there a reason why the mom went there to die?
Yeah, interesting. Ah, you're so
So
smart.
so many things to think about.
Yeah, I will say that as disappointed as I felt with this movie initially, the more I kind of like think about it, the more I'm like, oh, maybe there was more going on than I like gave it credit for. Maybe not, maybe it's not as deep. It's not all that deep, but maybe it
I
is.
I think it is, because if I think I said to you, I was done, that I thought it was a waste of film stock. I
You
don't
did.
feel that way now. Like,
Good.
I have thought
I feel
about
like
it
that was a
more.
little harsh.
Well, it might have just slightly.
Just
I
a
had a
tad.
bad day, okay?
You
But
did.
I was just, yeah, I was just so mad. But I have thought about it. Like, for a movie that I was determined to hate, I have thought on it a lot since
Yeah.
then, like trying to figure out, like, what was I going to say? What was I prepared to say I thought happened? And I still can't say for sure, but it does have a lot of things to think about. But like I was going to say, if there's not more going on, it was a waste of film stock, and I'm mad. But if all these other things that we'll get to as we talk about this, then maybe he was kind of masterful in what he did, and maybe all these people that put it on their list saw something that I didn't see at first,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I didn't think that this conversation was going to reap very much, but It did end up being like more thought-provoking than I initially gave it credit for. And normally we ask our listeners beforehand, hey, we're going to watch this movie. What do you guys think of it? And so obviously it's too late for that. But if you guys are listening to this and you want to give us your thoughts, give us your thoughts, and I'll still read it out on a future episode. That's totally fine. Because I'm genuinely curious what other people think about this, especially people if they've had a chance to like see this when it came out and like actually research it more, and they've seen it a couple of times or something. I think that would be really cool.
I know by who some of our listeners are that these people made lists and probably made lists that year. Especially let us know if this was on your list and what you and why. Like, we will have talked it all out by then. So I also love hearing what other people think, and especially I'm really proud of the group of listeners that we've kind of corralled so far. It's not huge, but it's definitely curated, and I love that. And I think we have really smart people that participate and listen. And this is one of those movies that I can't believe it, but I'm going to say that I think we could have a good discussion about, and I might not have said that 2 days ago. So, yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think that all of our listeners are way smarter than me, and I want to know what they think. I'm such a like take things at face value kind of person, and then you bring up these questions or like scenarios, then I'm like, what? I didn't even think of that. Even a tiny bit.
Maybe, but you are also much more open-minded. I pride myself on being extremely open-minded, and then I met you. You are much more like, you're real big picture and I'm kind of like small picture. And then you put the two of us together and you get like this well-rounded discussion, I think. You and I should do a podcast. You know that?
I think we should.
Oh my God.
That's a great idea.
Oh, will you be my podcasting friend?
I will. Will you be my podcasting friend?
Forever and ever.
Oh, yay. We did it. All right, we'll ask this guy to marry us in Podcastlandia. Sorry, listeners. There's a weird old priest guy in the back of my video background, if you're wondering what I'm referring to.
No, right. He would chastise us for being ungodly for sure.
Absolutely. We're totally heathens.
Totally.
Maybe he'll give us skulls. That would be cool.
Like this one.
Yes.
Yes.
Reasons. Give us goals, please.
Yeah.
All right. So, after the death of her mother, we open with the word horn in white text on a black screen now. So,
yes, if
you guys remember, we started with shadows. Now we're to horn. And we do see a pair of horns appear on the screen, and they belong to a goat. And this goat is at the end of a rope that's being held by a young woman who is Albrun 20 years later. And they have a little gaggle of goats with them on the mountain, and everything's so pretty. There's a stream and flowers. And so this is clearly spring or summer. And I think in comparison to all the cold, wintry scenes we just got, you think that you're going to be going into something much lighter and nicer. Ends up not being the case, but I do love that kind of juxtaposition and getting to see this mountain in all of its different seasons because it's really beautiful.
I think for people who live in places that get all 4 seasons like you and I both do, after having spent 5 years living in Kentucky where they don't, I think this kind of like shows like why people live in the Alps and put up with the rest of that crap, because it's like Wisconsin. It's so good when for 6 months that you put up with the crappy, the crappy 6 months. So, I mean, exactly. It is the most idyllic, not Wisconsin. Now I'm back to the Alps. It is the most like beautiful, idyllic, like I want to live there. You know what I mean? Yeah. It is just absolutely gorgeous. Now, for a second, I was wondering, because they don't tell you right away. And we do open up with the fact that she now has an infant daughter. I thought maybe that we're going back in time and this was Martha and baby Albrun. I mean, we learned pretty quickly that that's not the case, but for about 5 minutes there, I thought maybe that's where we were going. And I was like, oh, now we're going to find out how she got to be a witch and all that.
That would have been cool. There was a lot of different ways they could have gone that would have been cool. I don't want to say they would have been cooler than what we got, but they might have been cooler than what we got.
It's a way they could have brought in our much yearned for witchiness that you and I both kind of wanted. So,
yeah. So as you had just said, when we go back into the log cabin with Albrun, she does have a cute little newborn babe, who she cradles against her chest.
It's the cutest baby I've ever freaking seen. Oh my God.
She's a little redhead, right?
Yes. And she's got one of those babies with a ton of hair.
Yeah.
She's just so cute.
So cute. And she places her naked in her little cradle. And that's when it's revealed it's a daughter, and she's just so cute, and the weather's so nice she could just be naked. Oh,
and what's so crazy, like, as a mom here, me as a mom, well, for the first time in the 90s, but kind of recently, it's so like Albrun just goes about her day and leaves the baby, goes into town, leaves the baby in this little, and it's not like these, safety tested cribs with the the slats so far. She's in this just like a little cradle, like what you see Jesus
like a bassinet.
in, like like what you see. To me, it looks like what you see Jesus in, like a manger set,
right?
Just that little wooden carved
really
out.
Shallow.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, and the baby never complains, like, either. Nope. It's just like doo-dee-doo. Okay.
I know. I love good babies.
That's a really good baby.
Yeah. So we see her cute little baby, and Albrun goes outside to get some water, and she's just kind of looking around at her beautiful surroundings, taking in the sky. And this is, a theme throughout the movie, is her like just appreciating nature. And after that happens, she's walking with her pails of water, like strewn over her shoulders on a stick, like they do in all those old timey period pieces.
No. It is not water. It is goat's milk. And may I tell you, please,
is that goat's milk?
That was goat's milk. And
okay.
This is where we have to sit through her masturbating while she milks the goats.
I think that's later.
Nope.
I don't think that happens. Let me see.
See me pointing to my note? Oh, why isn't it? See me pointing to my notes? It's right there.
I see you pointing to nothing.
If I didn't see it, it didn't happen.
Well, it doesn't happen yet, because this is the part when she's being like bullied by stupid teenage boys.
Yeah, this is where she abandons her daughter, takes her newly milked, masturbated goat's milk, and heads for town with it, and meets the two little snotty bullies on the way.
Okay. I guess I just didn't think that it was such a big deal that she masturbated. I didn't even put it in my notes. I don't know.
I am not a prude. And I think it was she was freaking in love with that goat, man. She was.
How do you know she was masturbating? I don't think so. She was just milking the goat.
No. I'm like, oh my. Well, you see her put her hand under her skirt, and she's making that, like, I'm not going to make the face because we have a YouTube thing, but she's making the orgasm face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did I just see what I just saw? So of course, then I have to look on YouTube to see if anybody agrees with me. And yep,
they did. Okay, I totally missed that. I mean, I saw her like gently milking the goat and like feeling the goat's hair and like laying on the goat, and I was like, oh, this is so like sweet.
It is. That's what her left hand was doing,
appreciating
while her right
the goat.
hand was doing something else.
I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that.
Everyone has their kink, right? Hers is goats.
She didn't do anything inappropriate to the goat, so I'm okay. Did she? Did she do something inappropriate to the goat?
No, she didn't do anything inappropriate to the goat, I guess. I think I don't know. And it, like, I thought the goat was getting her hot, or was it just like so many pleasurable feels that she just, you know what I mean? Because like the fur and the hot milk and
Maybe it
the
was kind of like ritualistic in a way, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I mean, it's another form of appreciating nature, right?
yeah,
Your
totally.
body is natural. So
Absolutely.
I'm not against masturbation. I just thought the
I
whole
sure hope not.
no, no, trust me, I'm not. But I just thought a whole like the fact that I don't know, the fact that the goat was
Present.
participating against its like if that had been a little kid and she was doing that, she would be sexually abusing that kid. It's a goat, and you know what I mean? I just felt icky
Yeah.
to me. I don't know. So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm the weirdo that
Oh,
didn't think
duh.
anything was weird about it.
Duh.
Oh no, I'm weird. So apparently she masturbated according to people on YouTube. And
Because
she's
people on
carrying
YouTube
goat's
are
milk.
always right, right? I mean, come on.
Probably, I mean, I didn't do any research about it, so I'm gonna refer to you because you looked it up. So,
Well, I looked to see if people agreed with me, and they did. So
and they did. So you must be right.
well, at least me and like two other people on YouTube. Maybe we're
Oh, it's
wrong.
only two other people.
Well, I didn't like look at every single video. I like take a couple, see what people say, and then move on, you know?
Oh, okay. You handpick the ones that you
Well,
want that support your
oh,
theory.
this one looks like they agree with me. Yes, so isn't that how YouTube works?
Probably. I don't know. I'm not a YouTuber.
Yes, you are.
I mean, technically, but you do all of it for me. So, yeah. So she's got her pails of goat's milk when a couple of delinquent boys start throwing rocks at her. Not hard, by the way. They're just kind of like, ugh.
Swinders, man.
Yeah, those damn swinders.
We don't
They
want
throw
your
rocks at her.
we don't
They
want your stinky
spit.
milk or whatever they say
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
They like spit towards her general direction. They tell her to go back where she comes from, and they do call her a witch.
Go back where she comes from, which is like literally 50 feet in the other direction.
I know, right?
It's like we come from the same
right there.
We like come from the same place, you little dork.
Yeah. We're from the same side of the mountain. Yes. And this is when she runs into Swinda. And Swinda kind of helps like get the boys to go away. And we think, oh, Swinda's nice. Yay.
Swinda!
So she like briefly rescues Albrun, and then she is called away by a man. So she goes off to talk to whoever's calling for her. And then back at her hut later on, we see Albrun preparing the goat's milk. And then someone calls out to her, and it's Swinda. And so Albrun comes out to greet her, and we could tell she's kind of cautious. Like, why would anybody come and visit me?
Yeah, it's kind of an awkward exchange at first. Like, I
Mm.
think, I think Albrun's probably starved for companionship, especially like female companionship. She's got
Yes.
nobody. We still don't know where that baby came from, but we don't see a man anywhere. And I think she's cautious, but you can just see she wants this to be real, and we want it to be real for her,
Yeah.
At least
Totally.
I did. So
I did too. And Swinda, it turns out, is come by to get Albrun because the priest is calling upon her. And so Albrun, goes, and they walk together a little bit, and Swinda asks her about why she's living on her own with the baby, asks where her husband is, and Albrun says that there isn't a husband. And she doesn't say very much in general when Swinda is trying to get some information out of her. She's not a big talker.
No, but Swinda is. And I'm like, what? Like, Swinda would like straight up ask her questions. She just like doesn't say anything. But Swinda keeps talking to her. So I was just hoping she was just like really super nice and really interested in what she had, knowing about her and helping her. And yeah.
I know. Wouldn't that have been nice? Yes. Yeah, but I wonder, now that you brought it up earlier, I wonder if this is her kind of trying to like find out more about Albrun, if she has her mind made up yet about like wanting to like punish her for her heathen ways or something, you know? I don't know if this is like all part of that or not, or if it doesn't matter how she answers and she's already got it in her mind.
Well, I mean, we find out later that she's bigoted, racist, something. Swinda is. And so obviously, this is why I thought, and by the looks of it, like I said, I thought maybe this was like in the 1940s and this was like maybe during Hitler time or something. I didn't know, like, because she calls Jews out.
Yeah.
And how bad they smell. And I'm like, what is going on here? But I think she's got some of that, like, I mean, I don't think we were to the white master race yet at this point, but she's definitely, and maybe hers is more religious driven, but
I think
definitely
so.
got that superiority. There's one way to be, and it's white and Jesus fearing. And if you're not, then so.
Yeah.
But I was hoping, like, still at this point, like, maybe she genuinely thinks that it, really wants to help Albra. And if she can get her to go to church and get her to, be a part of the community, that she would like invite her into the community, I guess, and didn't like her being alone and really was going to care for her. And I mean, yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So they walk together. And that's when they eventually come up to the, what did you call it? The
ossuary
in the side of the mountain, which is so cool. I love that little building. Yeah. And then they go into the little like catacomb or whatever with all the skulls, which is my background because I thought that was super dope. I want to go in there.
I just have one skull, but yeah.
It's the best one though. So.
It's the fanciest one.
Yes. And so that's where she meets the priest by herself. Swinda's not in there with them when they're talking. But this is when they have that conversation that we were talking about earlier, where he's kind of chastising her, but also saying, like, my mission was to come here and to help people like you and your mother, bring you into the fold. So he's like kind of trying to lure her onto what he thinks is the light side.
I wrote, the priest says he came there to bring faith to people like her who have difficult lives. He implies that it's her fault she was raped because she isolates herself, which leads men to temptation, is what he actually says. So then I wrote, fuck you in my notes, but
yeah. Fuck you. That sucks.
That was a good one.
Yes. So that is terrible and we hate him. And now we know where the baby came from.
But do we? I mean, maybe he's just assuming that, you know what I mean? I was still hoping at this point that the baby came from the witches and like she's like the Mary of the witch world, like immaculately conceived or something. Because we never know, right? So I was like, ooh, I so hope that the baby is like this mystical being, or it's going to turn into something,
Witch Jesus.
Baby witch Jesus. Oh my God, you and I we are going to hell for sure.
One can only hope.
Yeah. I saw this pin the other day and it was this little goat and it said, "Not today, Jesus." Like, "Not today, nice. Satan."
Yeah.
"Not today, Jesus." And it was this
I love
goat.
it. Love it. That's so funny. Yeah, so that guy sucks. But he does give her the skull. Oh yes, and I did actually note that the flowers were painted on it already.
Yeah.
So let's see.
He gives her the
sacrilege
skull.
Must be cleansed.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
That was all I was gonna say. Did you want to add more?
No, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what to make of that. It's like he just gave her this sweet speech about how he's come to save people like her, and then gives her her own mother's painted skull. And I thought he kind of implied, because he kind of was like, that terrible fate that befell your mother was kind of like, he was kind of implying like it's because of the lifestyle that they lead, which she died of some, like some terrible disease, nothing to do with that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. He's just that religious guilt trip, the whole reason I hate religion to begin with. It's so all
Right.
based in guilt and fear. And he's
Yeah.
trying to, and I think she's so straight faced all the time anyway, but I think she's just like, not even, I don't think she cares. She's like not even hearing anymore. She's pretty fixated on this skull now. And you can just tell it's like rapturous for her. She's really, I don't know if she didn't know her mom's skull was in there or like didn't know somebody had taken time to paint it. So something about it was just like she was very grateful and kind of
Yeah.
like blown away by getting
Awestruck.
this. Yeah, awestruck. Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah. So she takes her skull back down to her little log cabin, and she's holding it in what was given to her in like this nice linen. And then all of a sudden she hears a sound behind her, and she stops to look around the forest. And she tries to make something out in the darkness, which is never revealed. So I'm assuming there wasn't anything there. I don't know what that is.
I'm going to hope that there is this bigger witch story going on and that I kept like, okay, here we go.
Oh, you mean like when you were watching it?
Yeah, when I was watching it, at this point, I'm just waiting. Like I'm waiting for the
Yeah.
witching to start. And I'm like,
The
okay,
witching.
she got the skull. That's her mom in
Yeah.
the, something. But
Yeah,
no.
I guess if we're just thinking about it, it's probably because after this point she starts like seeing her mom. She starts kind of having, I don't know if they're like visions or hallucinations or if it's just like her hope, like wishing it was her mom or dreaming. I don't know what it is. But we do see her mother appear here and there after this point. So maybe
But
that's what we're
we
supposed
get,
to get from that.
I mean, we're not, I'm going to believe, like, I really want to believe that these are witches and that really was the mom. I mean, they do give you outs though, like later she's going to take some shrooms.
Yeah.
And something terrible is going to happen, spoiler alert, and that could have made her lose her mind. So,
Hmm.
um, but I don't want to, I almost want to believe like the visions were her mom coming to her in her whatever her spiritual witchy form is, and she lives in the swamp and she's coming when her daughter needs her is what I'd like to believe. So anyway.
Yeah, that would be nice. Yes, and she makes it back to her little log cabin, and this is when she places her mother's skull on like a little altar in the corner of the hut, and later on adorns it with some flowers and this beautiful black cloth covering. So it's really beautiful and nice, and I love it. See, this is when I put that the next morning she's milking the goats and like listening to the wind and caressing the goat and like rubbing the goat's milk on her face and like watching the milk over her hands.
No, that was
Um,
we have masturbation scene 2 here, but it's not, I don't know, unless I mean I was writing as I was watching. So
hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we get another masturbation scene here though.
We do?
You don't remember this one?
No.
So she puts and this one you can't even argue with me. It's straight up. She puts her daughter in bed, she sets up her skull shrine, and then she goes and lays on the fur on her stomach and starts
Oh,
going
that
to
part.
town.
That's
Yeah.
later. Oh,
No,
that's
that's
like soon
no.
late. It's like almost happening right now.
I know you can't see.
I'm like, you're not holding anything. No, you're right, but it's not like while she's milking the goat. It's like in bed. Yeah, because I put let me see, what did I put? Let's see. In the night it rains and we see Albrun struggling in bed. Is she masturbating? She's face down. She's gently groaning. Yep, she's masturbating. So there's my train of thought for everybody.
Well, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be a little graphic here if there's anyone who's like doesn't like that kind of thing. But they only show her from the waist up, and the way that she was like, I'm like, if they pan over and there's a goat behind her or something,
Oh no.
I'm gonna lose it. I
Oh
think it was
no.
just the way that she was positioned. All I'm saying is it could have it could have, but I think she was just enjoying herself.
Yes.
That's it.
I don't think she ever enjoyed the goats in such a way. Those are female goats. I don't know if that matters.
True. That doesn't matter. That is true though. You are, well, at least one of them is.
Okay, but before the masturbation scene, let me see, where was I?
Oh, we have a Swinda scene.
Yes, yeah, that happens before. So it's after she's milked the goat. Swinda comes to visit her at her little log cabin.
Yep.
And she greets the baby and she asks for the baby's name and she lets her know that it's Martha, just like her grandmother. Oh, it's cute little baby Martha. And Swinda says she looks healthy, which she absolutely does.
Yes.
And they're sitting together at the table and Swinda takes a glass of the goat's milk provided by Albrun. And we can see that it's really hard for Albrun to make eye contact or sit still. These are some telltale signs of some trauma. And of course, she's been bullied like her whole life for being what she is. So we see Swinda like trying to kind of engage her. And that's why we think that Swinda's nice.
However, though, like I kind of feel Albert, like there's Cinda's like Swinda is like hella eye contact. She's always like,
right, which is also why we thought she was
pretty
a lesbian.
Intense. Yeah. I'm still not convinced she's not, but
oh yeah, maybe what she does later on is because of like hating herself.
And you said you're not a deep thinker.
Oh, I only got there because of something you said, though. And she does offer an apple. So I'm guessing her trade is apples, perhaps.
But she does say that she picked the most beautiful one for her. So she's flirting. There's flirting going on. She
is. You're right. That slut, Swinda. And it's when Albrun goes to pick up Martha when she's crying that Swinda notices the skull and staring at it for a minute. And it's slightly hidden beneath that black little piece of cloth with the flowers embroidered on it.
For those of you with YouTube, it's right behind me there.
And then she starts to look uneasy. And I was wondering in this scene, because I think we can start hearing like that wheezing sound.
Yeah.
So I was thinking like, oh, does she hear that?
Well, she seems mesmerized. It's more than just noticing it. She seems to almost like, not black out really, but kind of like lose herself in the skull for a minute or two. And then I think
entranced kind of.
Yeah. And then after that, I think Swinda becomes uncomfortable because I think she's used to being in control of every single situation, and B, it's like, oh, this is a heathen here, you know?
Yeah. Right. So yeah, this is kind of the point where it's like, oh, was Swinda actually being nice before, and now that switch has been flipped because of this?
It's so confusing though, because the priest gave her that skull. So at what point this is the only thing that just kept confusing me about it. But I do think this was Swinda's turn. Or I want to believe maybe Swinda was nice before, but this is definitely her turning point. But the fact that it's the skull that does it, I don't know if it's something she saw with the skull, because I don't think the skull itself is inherently heathenistic or bad, because the priest straight up gave it to her, and Swinda straight up took her to the priest to get it. So it's not, she might know that's, her beliefs are a little different, but I don't think she's like totally ostracizing her at this point. But something happens when she gets entranced by that skull that totally changes her whole demeanor. Like she straight up gets up and leaves. Mm-hmm. So without saying much, and
and that's why
just like, what the heck just happened,
Exactly. And that's why one of my only two questions really for the movie was, why did the priest give her that skull? It's because it kind of feels like it all boils back down to that, especially because the skull had the paintings on it. And so I don't know.
And I think if he did give it as we kind of came to the conclusion that maybe he gave it as a peace offering, sort of. The fact that it ultimately was her undoing, I think was her undoing, is just so sad then.
Totally. Like, it makes it even more sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, Swinda gets the heck out of there. And
she later.
And when she does, she says she'll see Albrun soon, and Albrun thanks her for coming and says it was nice to see her. So that's kind of the first hint of her being like, oh, maybe she's starting to feel a little comfortable with this person.
It's the most, since she was a little kid, the most words we see her say, and the most relaxed. Like, you can see she's slowly letting down walls with Swinda. And so it makes what's going to happen so much more heartbreaking. But at this point, you still have like hopes that maybe these two are going to be friends, that Albrun finally has somebody, lovers, whatever they're going to be. And, but that hope doesn't last very long.
You're right. Yeah. And then we get this scene of Albrun masturbating, but then we go to the next morning. So now I'm wondering, was she masturbating thinking about Swinda?
100%. That is exactly what I thought.
We really want to make this lesbian witch movie happen.
Really. I think we're this close to getting our wish with that, and then that damn
like skull. Why else even show that scene? I don't know. Maybe just to further prove that she's a heathen.
Well, yes, because I know I'm going to jump ahead here, but the next morning she wakes up and her daughter won't accept her breast. So something happened. She won't breastfeed. So it's like because she did something naughty, but we've already saw her masturbating, and that didn't cause any problems with the baby. So it's not the act of masturbation itself, but also we've just now started hearing the voices coming from the skull for the first time. So something changed, and now all of a sudden, like it's a quick. We go from she finishes her masturbating to boom, it's morning, and she's trying to breastfeed Martha, and Martha wants no part of it. So
interesting. I didn't even notice that.
Good thing you have me. Jeez.
Yes. And then this is when the worst scene happens, because this is when we see Swinda with Albrun, and they're in a beautiful field overlooking the mountains up on high. It looks so peaceful and nice, and like it's the perfect amount of sunshine, and clouds.
It's idyllic, completely idyllic. And they're just like sitting on a log right next to each other, looking like two gossiping girls do. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like Albrun was finally completely relaxed, or definitely as relaxed as we've ever seen her so far. And like, I think she was ready to accept Swinda as her friend.
Yeah. And then this is when Swinda flips her racist switch all of a sudden. and this is when we go, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Red flag. Because they're sitting in this beautiful field. You would think just appreciating nature, as they should be. And then all of a sudden, Swinda says something about how they found their nice spot on their mountains and they don't have to be afraid. And Albrun asks what they should be afraid of. And Swinda responds, those who don't have God's light in their hearts, the Jews. And she goes on to say...
the Jews and the heathens, which we now know that Albrun is a heathen.
Right.
And she says
that they're like animals, and that they'll take you, and then a few months later you have to bear their child. And oh God, it's just... And
in the meantime, she's like stroking Albrun's face and like twisting. She's like talking to her, like talking right to her. She's like kind of like stroking her face and twisting her hair around her hand, and she's like, and they stink. their smell or something about their smell or something. And you know how they stink or something like that while she's like smelling Elbrun's hair. So it's obvious too. She didn't straight out say it, but it's obvious she's talking about Elbrun at this point.
Yes. So now we're scared. Now we're worried. Like her whole demeanor has changed. She's not being, although she's still smiling, but like in a really creepy,
passive aggressive way. She's definitely changed, and you see right away Elbrun goes back to old, like you could just see she's like, shit, I knew this, I knew it, I knew this is what would happen. And I
she doesn't say anything or do anything, and she just keeps going along with Swinda and following her, because like what else can she even do, really? Well, we haven't like mentioned it, but she's like very slight, you know, in her figure. Elbrun is.
Yes.
Not Swinda. She looks strong.
Swinda looks like a milkmaid kind of person, you know, like totally. She could carry one Elbrun under each arm and walk uphill and be just fine. So
probably.
She's a stout woman, not in an unattractive way. I don't want to even say she's unattractive, just definitely the complete opposite of Elbrun.
Mm-hmm. Like physicality wise,
yes,
for sure.
Yes.
And so that we see them come down the mountainside onto a little trail, and they come across this man that's getting some water from a little stream. And then we see Swinda approach him and say something like, "This is the one I told you about." So she knows this guy. This seems like planned. This does not look like it's taking a good turn. And she's so like gross and excited and smiley about it that it just makes it even worse, and it makes you like more scared for whatever's coming next.
Gross is the perfect word for that whole scene. Like, Swinda, I think it's planned because Swinda is just like beside herself with excitement, I think, about what's gonna happen.
Right.
To be that is a degree of evil that I don't personally understand, but I know there's people that just get that glee out of being the cruel. It's such a level of cruelty. Now, mind you, I just said before how, like, you know, obviously she just goes and leaves her daughter. I think that's just the way it was. I mean, it's not like I guess they didn't know about like child kidnappers. I don't think that was a thing. Like, she was too.
Everyone's just trying to survive.
Right. It's not like, I mean, now moms, it's child safety above all. You don't even turn your back on your baby, like, let alone.
Back then, nobody wanted to steal your baby because then they would just have another mouth to feed.
Exactly. And it's not, I mean, she was really too little to fall. I don't think she was like crawling or anything. Yeah, I think she was too little, like really fall this thing. That she was gonna be fine. She may have been crying and all that, but I think just to say, like, I think she thought she might have just been taking a 15-minute walk with Swinda or something, and to find out that Swinda has these diabolical plans, knowing full well this woman, if nothing else, has an infant daughter left at home alone right now.
Yeah.
And she's going to pull the crap she's about to pull. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the three of them kind of start walking back up the mountainside, being led by Swinda. And they're laying down in the grass and the sun. And then Swinda smiles and she tells Elbrun to have a seat. And Elbrun looks nervous. Which
I'm like, are they going to have a threesome?
And I know, even at that point, I thought like, oh, maybe she's just trying to awaken her or something.
So, yep, so did I, because
why?
Right, 100%. Yeah. We don't know Swinda's evil at this point. This is when we learn. But I'm like, oh, she's gonna, like, obviously Elbrun is quite a sexual being. We don't see much from her, but we have seen 2 sex scenes with her already. Not much else. We see her being a mom, and masturbating is like a lot of what we see of her. So we know she is a sexual being, right? We get that. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I think Swinda maybe just really wanted to get with her, and this is a way that maybe in her mind would make it okay. It's not like straight up lesbian sex per se, because I think she like considers herself a godly woman or whatever, but I'm still dead set on Swinda's totally hot for Alberin. And I thought, well, that they're just going to initiate her into like a sexual experience is what I thought at first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That ends up not being the case. And all of a sudden, this beautiful sunshine is replaced by rain and thunder very quickly, which that's very relatable for me. Because I'm a witch. No, because I live in the Pacific Northwest and it'll just start raining out of nowhere like it did today. But she, so she's like laying Alburn down and the man's sitting there with them. And Swinda's whispering something.
He's just gross.
Yeah,
it's not like
it's like, why are you here? He's just kind of standing there like
he looks like he might be, and I'm gonna say some politically incorrect things here, but he looks like he might be the village like idiot kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not, I think he's almost be sort of like an outcast himself, or maybe she promised him he could have an experience with a girl, you know, like yeah. I think I thought maybe at first they might be friends, but then like as you kind of spend a little more time with him, which isn't much, but he seems like he's like kind of simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
with that,
so
yeah.
I think it was just a very overall manipulated situation by Swinda to get all three of them in one location. Because she did say, yeah, this is the one I told you about. Well, I can only imagine what she must have told him.
Yeah.
You know? Because he doesn't take his eyes off of her from that moment on. Like he knows what's about to happen.
He is waiting in anticipation. And we know definitely that Swinda's evil because she's eating an apple. And that's just what villains do. They sit there and talk while they're eating fruit loudly. And she is like very sloppy. She's like spilling apple guts all over her face for some reason. I'm like, it's an apple. You should be able to eat that without being so messy.
I think she was like so like excited by what she was watching.
Yeah. I know. That's the worst part of this whole thing.
You know?
Yeah. But she lays poor Alburn down and she's whispering to her that she's disgusting, you know, how she smells and she hates her stench. And then we're like, okay, this is going like in the exact direction that I was hoping it wasn't going to go. And we see the man. I don't think we're ever told his name or anything, but we see him like go to lift up her dress and he puts his hand around her throat while Swinda's like cradling her head in the crook of her arm.
It's very really bizarre. Yes.
Yeah. It's so gross and unsettling. Yeah. I hate it. But we see now Alburn's really freaked out and she's got these gigantic eyes that are just like frozen with shock and terror. And it's obvious what's going to happen next. We don't see it in like great detail or anything like that. We just see the beginnings of them, what they're insinuating, and then next we see Alburn is left on the side of the mountain by herself.
Yep.
And she's just kind of laying there.
It's getting dark now, so some decent time has gone by. And I'm going to remind you one more time, the infant daughter has been left alone this entire time, and that monster Swinda knew it.
Yes, that friggin' horrible monster.
Apple-eating whore that she is.
Yeah. And we don't know how long she's been laying there like that, but we can assume it's been for a while, just laying there, probably just like in complete shock before she finally sits up slowly, makes her way back home. And she checks on Martha, who's fine. And we do see like a brief moment of relief come into her eyes. Like, I'm sure she was worried that somebody could have been sent to do something to the baby too. So I'm glad that didn't happen.
Well, especially because now she knows Swinda was the mastermind, or at least heavily involved in what just happened. And she knows for sure Swinda knows she has an infant daughter at home. So
yes. So little baby Martha is fine, although she does go to check on her goats next. And at least one of her goats is not fine. And I feel like it's this kind of like her favorite goat that she's been bonding with throughout the movie. Mm-hmm. And they have it like hanging from the rafters in her little barn. in a way where it's like they skinned it and then tied up all of its like internal organs inside or something. I mean, honestly, it's kind of impressive. However, they tied it up like that.
Yes, it's well, I mean, they set it up so that however she touches it, it's going to be like a big explosion of guts. And all of her
Yeah.
other goats are stolen. So the way that she makes her living is gone. And then I think her favorite goat, or that one she seems to bond with, is the one that they mutilated. I mean, they could have mutilated all the other ones too, but we don't see. I have a feeling they took them for their own gain.
Yeah.
You know, like they're gonna.
That would have taken a lot of time and work if they mutilated all the goats.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, somebody put some time into mutilating this one for sure, which just leads you to like makes you wonder, was there even more people involved who did this while they were doing what they were doing up on the mountain? Or was she up on the mountain so long that they got done with her and then left her there passed out and went and did this to her homestead?
Yeah.
So either way, it's bad, but
yeah. I know. It's like, how much more do you need to do to her? Like, geez. It's just terrible.
It's a level of cruelty that I don't know. I just can't wrap my head around it, really.
Yeah. Like, she's obviously not even trying to convert her. She's not even trying to give her a chance to, like, convert or anything. She's just trying to get rid of her.
Absolutely. And this is when I'm like, yes, she's now going to turn into a vengeful witch and kill all these fuckers, you know? Yeah.
Which she kind of does. Because next, a rat walks across the barn, and in her rage, she murders this rat. Poor Ratty. And she takes the rat back to that spring where the guy was fetching the water, and she throws this dead rat in the spring. And then she also pisses on it, which this is another thing. Is this some sort of witchy ritual? Because then later on, there's some sort of plague that's taken hold, and we see all these bodies being burned, and she's like...
Well, that was the water supply. So she peed and bled into it. And I didn't know if she was bleeding because she got raped or if this is just her time. And good, because then that means that jerk had at least a messy time of it. I hope she was on her period when he was having his way with her, because that's what he gets. But that, yeah, she took the rat, which I don't, like, okay, I'm hoping she was a witch and put some sort of a like hex or spell on this rat, because unless I mean
it could also just be like a plague thing. You know what I mean?
Right. Like maybe the plague really is there. Her mom did die of the plague however many years ago, maybe. But how did she, like, maybe and we know now in hindsight, because I just watched a special on PBS about it, that we know that the rats helped spread the plague. Yeah. So I mean, she specifically took a rat, but then she also peed on it and took it straight to the water source that then we then see does kill people, which I was like, yes.
Yeah. So whatever, whether it's like the rat carrying a plague or her doing a witchy hex, whatever it is, she killed a bunch of people.
Yes. And so then we cut to, I don't know how much later, but like we see these like guys dressed in black with a cart full of dead bodies, and it does look like one's a man and one's a woman, and I was like, please let that be Swinda and the jerk, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not confirmed or anything. They don't like close up on it, but
Albrun looks happy, so that might be an indication that that's who got what they had coming.
Yep, I hope it was.
I hope so too.
But we then see like they're taking those two bodies to like a pyre where they're going to like burn them with a bunch of other bodies. So, I mean, I hope she gets credit for that. Maybe the plague was already there and she just spread it with the rat. But I'm really hoping it was a witchy thing that she did. And maybe you need a rat or something to help with this spell or whatever you want to call it. I don't know, mixed with pee, and that makes it work. But
right.
I mean, I want her to get credit for killing all those people. So.
Yes, that would be nice. But we don't know for sure. And it is one of those things where it could just be a coincidence. So.
Yeah.
Yes. And so after she does that, let me see. So I think we might have gotten to the dead people slightly ahead of schedule. Let me see.
I have Albin brings the dead rat. That night she lights a candle and prays to her mother's skull.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so we did miss that. Then the next day she goes to town while holding her child and sees many. Okay, that's what we just said. So we
Yeah,
missed
so the only thing we skipped was the candle before Martha's skull, which maybe that is also part of the hex. Who knows? And then also now, right before we see all the dead bodies, the word blood appears on the screen. So we had shadows, horn, and now blood. And chapter blood.
which I never quite. I mean, I kind of get like it kind of does talk about the chapter, but I never really understood if those three were supposed to have something to do with each other. They don't
I
ever
know, me
really.
either. I was like, are those just witch words?
Or just to
Shadows.
let us know we're starting a new chapter. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure what the significance was, if there was any. But yes, this is chapter blood, I guess. And this is when we see all the dead people. And Albrun has little baby Martha strapped to the front of her. And she also walks by the ossuary. Is that what you called it?
Yes.
And the bell's ringing, and that's where the pit is nearby, where all the bodies are being piled and burned. And she does smile down at her baby, and then she quickly walks away like someone's going to notice that she's smiling about the death.
They're going to know it's me.
Yes. And she walks through the forest, and the ground is covered in moss, and the trees are slightly swaying and creaking, and the birds are singing. It's so beautiful. And she finds a little skull with antlers. It's probably a dead baby deer. And then she sees these maggots wriggling around through a cluster of mushrooms. And that's when she decides to eat one of these mushrooms. And this was very confusing to me. When she was eating the mushroom, they had like a crunching sound effect going on. And I was like, did they just want our sense of hearing really heightened, like we're on mushrooms?
I don't know. It just gets weird from here on out. So
Yes. But just for
I'm
the
not
record,
sure.
mushrooms do not crunch. So I don't know
No,
what that
and
was.
these were like juicy ones. You could just tell there was nothing
Yeah.
crunchy about them,
No, they're like slimy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she goes on a little mushroom trip after this. Just hanging out with her baby in the woods, shrooming out. And I'm pretty sure she did that on purpose. Seems very intentional.
Yes. I'm sure. I mean, she lives off the land, so I'm sure she knew those were shrooms, not
Yeah.
like portobello, like,
Right. Edible.
Yeah.
Yes. So she's just like hanging out with her baby at first, and she's just laying in the moss and just feeling all of her foresty senses. And then all of a sudden she hears a sound that kind of breaks her away from just like her calm state of being that she was in. And she looks up at the trees and they're kind of painterly. And so we're like, okay, shrooms are kicking in now. And we hear an owl hooting nearby. And Albrun's looking around at the forest and she's wandering about when she comes upon that swampy marsh that I had noted, probably the one that her mother died in. And I'm guessing, yes, that's probably
what I thought.
Yeah. That's what makes most sense. So she dips down into the water and she looks down at her baby, who's crying with these wide eyes. And she unties the cloth that's holding the baby against her chest. And then we hear the baby's cry suddenly cease as she's released this baby to the swampy water. Very like calmly, might I add.
Yep.
Which I hate.
Yep.
I hate this. So
But this is where I'm like, okay, this has to be a thing, because then she goes under the water too, and she sees her mom. So
Mhm.
I'm like, I was hoping this wasn't just a shroom trip. I was hoping this was like, because we still don't know where this baby came from. Yes, people have put rape on her, like told
Yeah.
her that's what happened, but she's never said that. So I'm like, oh, good. This is where we get the confirmation that the baby is really a thing, a being, a thing. She's giving it back to the mom. I don't know what's going on here, but this is on purpose, and this will be
Mm.
okay. Like this is all
Oh.
part of something, and yeah,
Yeah. Nope.
no,
Or at least not in the way that you were hoping for,
right.
definitely. Um, yeah, so she has released the baby to the water and, she is swimming under the water. It's pretty murky and she sees her mother, Martha. We also start to get a visual of blood leaking from all the roots that are under the water. And
Uh-huh.
that kind of like closes up this whole mushroom tripping scene. I don't know what was up with that or what that's supposed to represent,
I mean,
but
that's the blood, I guess, from the name of the
I was gonna say we
chapter.
are in
But
chapter blood, so um
this is why, when I saw that, I'm like, all right, they're like renewing themselves or
mm,
something. It's what I was hoping,
yeah.
trying to ignore that she was on a psychedelic mushroom trip, and probably none of this was real, but I was hoping. I was still
Yeah.
waiting for my witchness.
Then she crawls out of the marsh all muddy and wet. And now we're entering chapter fire. And so back at her little hut, there's a snake that slithers into her bed as she's sleeping. I think, is she sleeping naked in her bed? I think she
I
probably just got home and just like
and
fell in
it
the bed and
looked
went to sleep.
It looked exactly like the same snake crawling around her mother's neck in the same way when she
Hmm.
found her dead.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
And the snake's just slithering all up around her. And she does wake up, but she's just very calm and just laying there and just letting the snake do its thing. I was like, cool, hanging out with the snake, love it. But then all of a sudden, a voice comes out of the darkness, and Alburn gets out of bed and goes out to sit before the skull of her mother. And the candle is already lit. Rain is leaking inside, and Alburn watches the light of the fire dance across the skull's face. She looks around her hut until she approaches the cloth that is containing the lifeless body of little baby Martha, who's all wet and covered in bleaches and muck. Um, and Alburn wraps her up in the blanket, and she's holding the baby close to her while she's kind of struggling to breathe. And so I don't know if she realized that she had killed baby Martha. I don't know if she remembers bringing her home.
Well, I thought, because I wrote in my notes that she wakes up to her mom calling her name,
Hmm.
and I thought it was the mom that brought the baby back. But then you would, like,
Oh.
I'm just not buying. This is me not buying the mushroom trip.
Okay.
Like, I'm just, I know there's scenes like in a minute here, like she's still tripping, it seems like. But because she's like having like purple psychedelic lights and stuff like that. And I know
Mhm.
she took the mushroom. I know that. But the scene of her going into the water with the baby doesn't have any of that psychedelicness to it that some of the other scenes do. That when
Mhm.
we're out, when it's obvious that she's tripping, and that was not. It had a slowness to it, but it didn't really have that psychedelicness, like effects or whatever that he put into some of the other scenes when she's obviously tripping. So
Yeah.
I'm just like holding on to the belief that she gave the baby to her mom for whatever reason, and the mom brought it back. I don't know why, but we don't see her leave with the baby. We don't, I mean,
Yeah.
but we don't really see her go home either, honestly. But
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, we see her like crawl out on the marsh and she doesn't have the baby
She
with
doesn't
her.
have the baby. So I don't know. I'm choosing to believe that the mom
Hmm.
brought it back because the door's open and the baby's there and she was sound asleep.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, somebody brought the baby back, even if it was her, and then she just happened to crawl into bed and fall asleep naked after doing that. I don't know. We
Yeah.
don't know. We never find out. But I wrote in my notes that she woke up to her mom saying her name, and we hear that
Yeah.
weird breathing. So
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm choosing to believe the mom was there.
But do you think when she's unwrapping the blanket and seeing the baby that she knew that she was going to see a dead baby at that point?
I mean, even with what I'm saying, I'm choosing to believe. I still don't know why for any of it. Like none of that makes any. Why would the mom bring it back a dead baby? If she was a witch, she'd bring back an alive baby. If she was a witch with powers, maybe she'd bring back an alive baby. But we still don't know where the heck that baby even came from. The whole thing's weird. Like, I don't know. So much of this is left up to interpretation. But I mean,
Yeah.
I think they definitely make it so that you could believe the mom brought the baby back. There's plenty of visual cues to, um, first of all, the baby looks like just like the mom did when she was laying in the water after she died. That those same leeches and dirt and waterlogged look, it almost looked like they were like the same exact. So I don't know. I can't say that I know for sure, but the, he definitely made it open that you could think that something from the swamp brought the baby back.
Mm.
So
And then another thing, other than the mushroom or witchery, is that she could have just been like broken by her trauma, which I think is why like sanity is questioned when you're looking up this movie a lot too. So it's like, is she shrooming? Has she just like lost it?
I mean, she's got plenty that the poor kid could have literally lost her marbles back when she was 12 and they just left her there with her mom's dying body. I mean, this
Yeah,
she has had so much we know, well, no, we don't know. We know she was raped at least once. It's insinuated that she was raped twice, at least that we
yeah,
know of. So I mean, she's obviously traumatized. She looks traumatized. She acts traumatized, except when
yeah.
she's with her daughter. Then she seems very present and.
Right.
But
That's the thing that that's kind of why I was wondering, like, did she know that she was killing her baby? Like, did she do it intentionally? Because even if she, is traumatized from being raped, if it's also insinuated she was raped before and she still loves this baby, it doesn't seem like she cares if the baby came from, I mean, I can't say for sure, I'm not in her head, but she seemed very like in love with her baby.
oh, for sure, yeah, for sure. I don't know.
So
I
I
mean,
don't
unless
know.
we're
It
just
just seemed kind of weird.
supposed to believe that. I mean, also she doesn't seem like the type that would be irresponsible enough to drop some shrooms when she was taking care of her baby. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that seemed very out of character. But also she like her whole world just blew up. Like her livelihood is gone.
Yeah.
She has nothing. So maybe she killed Martha because she knew she was going to kill herself.
I was wondering about that too. Like if
Yeah.
it was a kindness.
Hmm.
We know no one's going to take in her heathen baby.
No, and she already has been abandoned with her mom's dead body. She's not going to want that for her own daughter. If she
Yeah.
really felt like she couldn't go on, but I mean, literally in her social situation, she now has no way to provide for this daughter. We just saw that the daughter doesn't want her breast milk, and now all of her goats are gone, so she doesn't have that source of food. Um, maybe she just felt like, well, there's nothing, I have no reason to go on, and I can't take care of my daughter can't survive on love alone.
Hmm.
So I guess drowning the baby, what's her other choices, like suffocating her? I guess I don't know. I mean, there's really no humane way to do that per se,
Right.
but I, I don't know. Just depending on what you believe, I guess. Maybe it was a kindness. I don't think it was malicious. She wasn't killing Martha because she hated the baby or anything. I think she would have had to have gotten to complete state of hopelessness to. I think she felt that Martha was the one good thing besides her goats that she had. You know.
Right.
So
Yeah, it is kind of, now I'm wondering too if even all of that, like taking the mushrooms and stuff, was also part of some ritual because it was like She saw that she got her revenge, we can assume, on those people that wronged her. And she leaves with a smile, you know what I mean? So we think like, okay, she's in a good mood. She's like confirmed that those people are dead. Cool. And she's hanging out with her baby, right? And then she's taking mushrooms and giving her baby to the marsh. I don't know. It's like how much of all of that is part of some weird
I don't
ritualistic
know.
thing that she's doing.
Because
And then
plus,
even this next part.
if she killed everyone in town, she could literally go get her goats back or go get somebody else's goats at this point, right? Like she just kind of like I don't think
True that.
I don't think like I think she kind of could have turned her situation around at that point unless she just wasn't thinking. You know, maybe she was just so mentally traumatized she didn't even care about that anymore.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it seems like there's a few different avenues for what's like actually happening. But after she discovers little baby Martha, she places her in the fireplace. And then shortly after, we see her looking down at her food. And this is my train of thought. Let me see.
Give it.
Sorry. We see her look down at her food. What the fuck is that? It's clearly a carcass of some sort. I really hope that's not her fucking baby. She barely takes a nibble and looks quite unsettled. She goes to take another bite. Is this her fucking baby? Oh my God. So
I was wondering if it's not the baby. First of all, where did the source of food come? It looks like a rotten corpse of roadkill or something. It looks like a small rib cage size thing, which could be an animal, could be a freaking raccoon for all we know. Was this like a carcass she picked up in the woods? That's what it looked like. I mean, it looked like it was decomposed already, but she did put her baby in the. It looked too juicy to be the baby coming out of the fire.
Oh, maybe.
So
I thought that she was eating her baby.
I mean,
like as some sort of weird fucking ritual.
I didn't rule it out. I just wondered, like, it almost. I mean, if she only left the baby in there for 15 minutes, I guess it would be like, okay. It just looked like something that was rotten to me, but I'm not totally sure. So,
yeah.
I don't know.
You didn't look on YouTube? See if it was the baby?
I only care about masturbating. I didn't care about the carcass.
Apparently. And then we get this really weird scene of her just like shaking semi-violent, like she's trying to contain the shaking and her eyes are bulging and she's trying so hard to force herself to eat this carcass.
Yeah.
She clearly doesn't want to, and she's just like throwing it up and screaming, and it's like this white vomit covering
it looked
all
like
over her mouth.
Same as her mom's vomit. Look, her mom's vomit looked just like that white frothy, whatever that was. I don't know. But yeah. I thought, like you, I'm like, this has to be some sort of ritualistic thing because she was forcing herself to eat that. It wasn't like she was eating because she was hungry or, I mean, if you just knew you just killed your baby, I doubt you'd sit down for a meal.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to eat. You know what I mean? Like, it seemed like something she had to do, whatever it was.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe it's part of some weird ass ritual. Not for her benefit, apparently, because of where this ends up going. Yeah. So I'm not sure, like, what the point of the ritual is, but all of a sudden her surroundings look distorted and there's a scream. And Albryn sees her mother in the corner of the hut where her skull is housed and runs out of her little hut. And she runs and she thinks that she can hear screams and wheezing of her mother behind her. And then we see her crawl around on the mountain as the sun begins to rise. And we get a close-up shot of her eyes. And they look strange and milky. Kind of like when you see like a blind dog. It's that kind of effect of...
roomy or cataract looking. Like they've gone opaque is what it is. Like they just almost are like completely white. So. Right. And then whatever she saw or whatever ritual she did, maybe something has physically, I don't know if it was part of that. I don't know if she's dying. I don't know what's going on, but like she had fine eyes yesterday and now they're like.
Yeah. Crazy looking.
Yeah. And
she slowly lays down in the grass and closes her eyes while softly smiling. And we watch as the sun rises and illuminates the snowy mountain peaks. And then all of a sudden, Albryn is on fire and the credits roll.
Yeah. I was just like, my face.
Like, what just happened?
Just happened?
And why?
And why?
Yes.
Like, she just killed all those. I don't know. I have no. Okay, everyone, you just heard everything we just said. What the heck just happened? Because she felt she had to die for killing everyone. She had to kill her. Like, when she saw those dead bodies, why wasn't she just like happy?
Yeah, I don't know.
Her and her daughter can like now have a nice peaceful life, you know?
Yeah.
Nobody had to die. Nobody had to die, Albrin.
Yeah, nobody else after all those bad people died.
Right.
Yeah,
you and Martha could be like ruling the roost up there with everybody's goats. I don't understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's why people say it's like insanity took over or whatever. I don't know. But it seemed kind of sudden. Like she was able to be happy about those people dying.
Come up with a plan. Like, I mean, and everybody traumas differently, I'm sure. I don't know what the mind cracking timeline is, but she came up with plan. She enacted the plan. She carried out her evil revenge. She could have taken over the whole town, but no. She did herself and her child in a pretty gruesome way. But the fact that her body spontaneously, vampire style, bursts into flames when the sun hits it
makes it feel real ritualistic.
A witch, right? Like, come on. Something that's not
unless she's just imagining it and she's not really on fire. I don't know. Maybe she's still shrooming. She's like, I'm on fire.
Well, it seemed like she was still hallucinating in the cabin even that next when her eyes went, funny. So
I don't know. Now I feel like I like this movie a little less because now it's too confusing. Too thought-provoking.
True that. And I will not be watching it again in the future to try to figure it out. So there's that.
Very good. That sounds fine to me. I'm not going to say that I'm like sad that I saw it though. Like I'm glad that I finally watched it because it's been on my list. I was going to watch it at some point. I love witches. I'll watch all the witch movies no matter what.
No one on earth I would rather discuss it with than you. So I've accomplished that now. And yeah.
Yay.
I am open to what other people have to say. But
I am like more than open. I need answers, please.
I need answers.
It will determine whether I like this movie more or less.
Girl, go to YouTube and listen to what. Just go and listen to what everybody says. They'll tell you.
Okay, maybe I'll do that. But so I guess I'll go first since it was my pick. Things that I liked about this movie. I like the cinematography. I thought that the gross out scenes were in fact gross or like effective.
Yes.
For a micro budget movie, I think it actually accomplished quite a lot. Obviously I love the scenery of the Alps, and getting to see it in different seasons. And it did just take them that long to make, because of funding and having to like crowdsource more money and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, right? Yeah.
So they were actually able to get all those seasons in. And I really like the scenes where Albrin's just enjoying nature and just like seemingly like breathing with nature. And there's a couple of creepy scenes, which are mostly at the beginning of the movie. And I wish that they would have put more creepy scenes into it. I wanted more witchery, especially because that scene, that setting is just like so perfect for creep. Give me more creep.
For folk horror, I think they could have really done a masterful folk horror movie in that setting. So yeah.
Yeah. And the last thing I put is that I love the catacomb in the church. And there were other shots and scenes like that. I just love the way that it was framed, but this is probably my favorite one. Super cool. And then things that I didn't like, I thought it was kind of slow and boring. And while I do like slow burns, and the ending was brutal, I just didn't feel like it was enough of a payoff for like what we endured. And talking about it, I felt like I was actually less bored maybe, but I mean, I can't deny that while I was watching it, I was like, I'm kind of bored, you know? So that was my response to it. Um, and like I said, I wanted more witchery. I understand this is supposed to be realistic, so I guess it achieved that. But for my personal preference, I want more witchery. Let's see. That's pretty much it. I already talked about this other stuff. So I said that it's kind of a goodish movie, all things considered. But something about it wasn't really connecting for me. And I just kind of felt bored throughout. Um, and like I said earlier, there's other movies like You Won't Be Alone and The Witch that are also period pieces, and they're so good that it makes this movie kind of blah in comparison. And while I hate just like comparing movies, you know, you just can't help it sometimes. Um, and overall, I gave it a 7 out of 10, which isn't terrible, you know,
Oh,
and
that's really good.
I think I gave it that much credit just because of the fact that it was more thought provoking than I thought it was going to be initially. When I found out that it was a micro budget, that kind of bumped up my rating a little bit. So it's a 7 out of 10, but it's also not something that I would just like freely recommend to everybody.
Yeah.
Like if you love witch movies, maybe check it out just so that you could say that you watched all the witch movies. You know, and if you like folk horror like I do, you know, maybe you want to check it out for that, see where it goes in your list of your folk horror movies. I mean, I've heard a lot of people actually really like it. I can't remember who those people are or why they really like it, but it's not a terrible movie, but I'm not ever going to watch it again. Although I do want to hear everybody's thoughts and interpretations to see if it detracts or improves my personal rating. What do you think, Tammy?
I do feel differently about it, having discussed it with you, finding out that it's a micro budget, that kind of stuff. However, that's me now, and I'm still more inclined to like kind of go with trusting my gut about this and just how I felt as a moviegoer when I finished it. To me, this feels like, it's very hard to explain, but the best way that I can think of to explain is it feels like something that's pretending to be a movie that isn't really a movie. And I don't know how else to explain that, but there's so much missing that this is where one of the cases for me where the parts don't make a whole. So while it has good parts to it, it is extremely beautiful. I did like the characters. There's some really good ideas here, but did it come together and make a movie? I don't think so. So
that's a good point. Yeah.
But like I'm not as mad as I was. Like that I was literally, if I could show you, and I know you can't see it, but it says, I wrote, what was the purpose of this? That was the last note that I wrote. And I still kind of feel that way, even though I was able to have a 3-hour long conversation about it. And I feel like it couldn't, I mean, we dissected the heck out of it and still couldn't come to any kind of a consensus, really. I just need a little bit more than that. I don't mind when I have to figure things out for myself, but I mean, at some point you just got to say, I'm sorry, this just isn't working. And for me, that's just kind of what this is. I almost feel like I want to give him some money and tell him to like, okay, now go make a movie for real. You have some great ideas here. You know, you got a great cast, you got a beautiful movie. Now go actually make a movie with all those things, you know, just because you put all those things together doesn't mean you can call it a movie necessarily. So
you want him to Sam Raimi it like Evil Dead.
Sure. That and yes.
Hagazussa too.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to give it like a 2 or a 3 maybe. And that sounds really harsh, but it's just for lack of, it's not because anything was bad. Nothing was bad. I just don't even feel like there's really a movie here for me to rate. So it's really hard to say. And I don't think I've ever come to that conclusion before in my entire life. So that's kind of weird, but that's just kind of how I feel about this one. Like, it's just kind of a non sequitur for me, you know, it just,
Yeah.
It's just a non. So I'm not like, I would really, like Jessica said, love to hear what everybody else has to say. Maybe you can help me understand what I'm missing. Maybe there's just something that if someone told me, like the fact that Jessica said it was a micro budget, that does help. But that still doesn't mean that it didn't give it a script. I mean, it didn't give it a story. So, but
What
it
would you
does
have
make
rated it on Tuesday?
a 0 for
Oh
sure, 100%.
no.
Well, on Tuesday I would not have like, I mean, I finished this against my will, so it's really even unfair for me to even rate something that I never should have been watching in the first place. It's going to
Yeah.
sound terrible, but the fact that you said there's other people that actually this made their list, obviously this just wasn't for me, or something. Tammy in this movie just did not get along. So yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, I certainly tried. I dissected the heck out of it with my
You
good friend
did.
here, and just could not
Like
conclude.
I feel like my rating's a little high, but I also feel like that was because of some of the stuff that you said and brought up. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, maybe I'm just being a little harsh.
I I
So it's kind of
I
funny. It's like the lowest you've ever rated something.
and I admit that I sound very harsh, um, but I still wouldn't call it a bad movie. I just wouldn't call it a movie.
Yeah.
Like,
You're totally right though, because yeah, it's like there's certain parts and certain like thought-provoking scenes, but then in the end it's like, yeah, what was the point of
right.
like going through all this?
I
What
mean,
is the conclusion?
I understand, like, I get it. Like, there's that whole thing about you don't have to have every movie doesn't have to, wrap itself up in a nice bow for you. 100% agreed. Or else
But it
we
has
would,
to have a point.
right? Like, I wouldn't be a reviewing podcaster if there wasn't that where, people are supposed to discuss what they think happened. I would have no hobby here. So
Yeah.
I totally welcome that. This just doesn't qualify. That's just my feeling. And like I said, weirdly, I can't call it a bad movie. It's not a two because it's bad. It's just a
Yeah.
two because it doesn't exist. So
Wow.
yeah.
It's crazy.
I just wrote it into just like that. Now it's a nothingness.
Oh no. Ah,
That's my witchy powers right there.
right there. Yeah. You're going to terrify the director, Lucas. Just a look of your
All you
eye.
swinders and swinders out there, you better watch out.
How can you give a movie a 2 when you now have a whole new vocabulary
Oh,
for
well, going
men
forward,
and women?
right? Like now I actually have it's great. Like you and I know what it means and it's not politically incorrect. And I definitely think there's moments that those words fit perfectly. You know what I mean?
Right.
We all
That's
know a
so
Swinda.
funny.
So,
That we do. I mean, I don't know. I hope I don't know anyone that's as bad as Swinda that
oh
would like go
no.
to those lengths to do something so horrible.
Yeah.
But you know. Well, other than the movie review, all we've got left is our monstrous mention for the week. I feel really bad because I didn't have one last week, and that's just because I was busy and just trying to get the podcast done, and I just did not prepare as thoroughly as I should have. But this week, I'm back to having a monstrous mention, and it's the Cat Monster, who is an artist in a variety of mediums, and she's from out here in the Pacific Northwest. And that's Kat, like
I was
K-A-T.
just gonna say it's cat with a K.
Yes. She is a drag performer. She's also an illustrator, and she's a budding tattoo artist. And you can check out all of her work, and she does commissions and all of that on her website, which is thecatmonster.card, which is CARRD.co. Her Instagram name is the Cat Monster Art, all together with no spaces or dots or anything. And that tattoo shop that she's working at is called Muse Tattoo. And their handle on Instagram is Muse Tattoos PNW for Pacific Northwest. And I'm going to make sure I include all of her information in our show notes, of course. But that being said, we're gonna get the heck out of here unless you've got anything else. Tammy, you got anything else?
No, I just talked for 3 hours about a movie that doesn't even exist. So.
Time well spent.
Yes, exactly. Well, I will take us through our outro then. I see my little name on it. Oops, hang loose. That's going to do it for this episode of Horror Through Her Eyes. Next week, we will be reviewing my pick, Black Christmas 1974, which is streaming currently for free on Tubi, Peacock, Roku, Pluto TV, Freevee, and Crackle. I just have to say, Freevee, don't watch it on there. If that they have obnoxious amounts of commercials on there. I'm just gonna say.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think Tubi is actually the best as far as not like inundating you with commercials if you're gonna watch it for free. I mean, maybe they don't bother you. I hate them. Please subscribe, rate, and review the podcast anywhere podcasts are found. Join our Horror Through Her Eyes Horror Through Her Eyes Facebook group page. Email us at horrorthroughhereyes@yahoo.com. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at Horror Through Her Eyes Pod with an underscore between each word. Follow us on TikTok at Horror Through Her Eyes Pod, and follow us on Letterboxd at Horror Her Eyes. As we bid you farewell, we hope you enjoyed your time with us on Horror Through Her Eyes. It's been a blast diving into the depths of dread with you. Until next time, remember to live deliciously.